Chapter 553. The two of them had been playing all kinds of games in the office for a long time, so they were very familiar with it. They didn't think about whether the employees outside would find out. In fact, they weren't afraid of being found out. Yang Cheng was an indifferent person, and Anshin was even more open-minded. Anyway, she was seducing such a man, and he wasn't a fickle person, so there was nothing to hide. However, after all, they were in the office, so Yang Cheng couldn't go too far. So, after a quick round of sprinting, he stopped after half an hour. Anshin tried hard to make her voice not very loud, but the expression on her face after being moisturized was hard to conceal her charming and moving charm. The two of them cleaned up. Yang Cheng planned to go home to take a shower, then go back to the company to pick up Anshin for lunch. These days, the little vixen had been harassed by Lu Min and angered by Zaihuan. She had lost a lot of weight, and it made people's hearts ache to touch her. However, before Yang Cheng could go out, the office phone rang. Looking at the number, it was obvious that it was an internal call. Yang Cheng picked it up, only to hear his deputy, Zhao Teng, saying anxiously, "Director, someone suddenly came from the Western District Police Station, and it was Chief Lu himself. He said he wanted to arrest someone." After listening, Yang Cheng raised his eyebrows, said, "Got it," and hung up the phone. Zhao Teng's voice was very loud on the phone, so Anshin naturally heard it. In an instant, the blush on her face disappeared without a trace, and she asked worriedly, "Is it that Lu Min?" Who else could it be?" Yang Cheng snorted and laughed. "That guy's quite fast. In just half an hour, he called the chief of the police station, and he directly broke into the company to arrest someone. He's making a big deal out of this." At this time, the office door was pushed open from the outside, and a few police officers in police uniforms ran in. The one in front was a short but more capable middle-aged man. Judging from his uniform, it was obvious that he was a police supervisor. He should be Chief Lu. "You are Yang Cheng?" Chief Lu looked at Yang Cheng a few times and asked in a low voice. Yang Cheng nodded. "I don't know why you came to my company. I don't seem to have broken the law." Yang Cheng actually had some impression of Chief Lu, but it wasn't that they had met before. It was just that when he had a conflict with Chi Kai for Lu Mingyu, Chi Kai had called Deputy Chief Lu. However, at that time, Choi Yun was still in the Western District Police Station, and this guy was only a deputy. Now that Choi Yun had left, he was promoted. Now, Chi Kai's entire family had been killed, and this guy's family had been killed. Humph, don't play dumb. Someone is accusing you of attempted murder, and you have already injured someone. The evidence is conclusive. It's useless to deny it. Arrest him. Chief Lu immediately ordered his men to arrest him. Several police officers rushed up and handcuffed Yang Cheng without any courtesy. Anshin watched anxiously from the side, not knowing what to do. Yang Cheng didn't think of resisting. He couldn't kill a bunch of police officers in broad daylight. He still wanted to live a good life in Zhonghai. Moreover, these police officers were only following the orders of Mr. Lu. They didn't do anything wrong. Unexpectedly, when Chi Kai asked Chief Lu to arrest him, Chief Lu didn't dare to make a move after checking his information. It was probably because of the problem with his information and Choi Yun's special instructions. Now that Lu Min wanted him to arrest him, Chief Lu hurried over. From this, it could be seen that Lu Min's status was much more important than Chi Kai's Chi clan. In fact, his status had even surpassed that of Choi Yun's Kai clan, which was quite a surprise to him. Many employees were already standing outside the office, including Zhao Teng and Wang Jie. Seeing that Yang Cheng was arrested, they were so scared that they didn't dare to speak. They just looked at Yang Cheng worriedly and didn't know what to do. "Don't just stand outside and do what you need to do. I'm not going to be executed," Yang Cheng joked. He then turned around and said to Anshin, "Don't worry, I'll be back soon." Chief Lu sneered. "Don't talk so much nonsense. It's not up to you whether you can come back or not. Take him away." Then a group of police officers pushed away the employees outside and escorted Yang Cheng out of the office. Anshin watched helplessly as Yang Cheng was taken away. She bit her lips with tears in her eyes. Although she knew that Yang Cheng's skills were terrifying, it was the police station after all. Moreover, it was obvious that Lu Min wanted to do something to him. No matter how powerful Yang Cheng was, He couldn't face the country's sharp weapon. After the police left, Zhao Teng and Wang Jie, who were outside, asked the employees to go back to work. They walked into the office and comforted, "Missin, don't be too sad. Director Yang will definitely be fine. He can't disregard the law." Anqin had a bitter look on her face. She was born in the upper-class society of a big family. She knew that some forces really had no regard for the law, but she couldn't say it out loud. Wang Jie said, "Missin, should we inform Director Yang's family? Or hire a lawyer for Director Yang first?" Family? Anqin hesitated for a while. Should she let Yang Cheng's family know about this? If they found out that Yang Cheng was arrested in the police station in the future, but she didn't tell them, would Yang Cheng's family resent her? However, if she told them, would Yang Cheng blame her for making his family worry? After thinking for a while, Anqin decided to call a lawyer first to help Yang Cheng fight for his rights. It would be better if he didn't suffer any hardships. Therefore, she asked Wang Jie and Wang Jie to leave first. Anqin walked to the desk and picked up the phone. She called the best lawyers in Zhonghai that she knew. After she finished this matter, Anqin hesitated whether she should call in Zaihuan or not. However, she gave up after thinking for a while. And Zaihuan was so afraid of Lu Min. Why would he help Yang Cheng and provoke Lu Min? At this moment, someone knocked on the office door again. Anqin thought it was an employee and said, "Come in." It was two strangers that Anqin didn't know who walked in. It was a man and a woman. The man was tall and handsome. He was wearing a gray tight sports short-sleeve shirt. The lines of his muscles were very distinct. The woman looked quite delicate and pleasant. Her figure was only below the man's chest. She was wearing a plain short-sleeve shirt and jeans without makeup. "You two are..." Anqin looked at the two in confusion. The woman smiled slightly and said, "You are Anqin Missin, right?" Anqin nodded. How did the other party know her? "My name is Yezi. He is Tianlong." Yezi pointed to Tianlong beside her and said, "We want to tell Miss and that if you want to safely rescue Mr. Yang from the police station, it is best to call Mr. Yang's family." Anqin wasn't stupid. She immediately knew that these two people definitely knew Yang Cheng and had a way to save Yang Cheng. She quickly grabbed Yezi's hand and said emotionally, "Miss Yezi, Mr. Tianlong, you can bring Yang Cheng out, right? I beg you to help him. It's all my fault that he is in trouble. He is being slandered." Looking at Anqin's sad face, Yezi and Tianlong looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They weren't worried about whether Yang Cheng was being slandered. This wasn't a problem. What they were worried about was that if the idiots in the police really provoked Yang Cheng, he would turn the police station upside down and kill everyone. Then, the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade would really be embarrassed. Since Kai Ning was recalled to Beijing, the task of looking after Yang Cheng was handed over to Yezi and Tianlong, who had recovered from his injury. Now, they were considered husband and wife in the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade. The newly appointed general, Kai Yunqing, knew that they had a good relationship with Yang Cheng. Not only did he give him a year or two of rest, he also gave him the opportunity to stop Yang Cheng from doing certain things at critical moments. Initially, Yezi and Tianlong thought that after the incident with the Zheng family, no one would dare to provoke Yang Cheng. However, they didn't expect this jinx to be so troublesome. He actually provoked Lu Min the moment he returned to Zhonghai from Paris. Lu Min wasn't a big deal, but Yellow Flame Iron Brigade didn't dare to offend Lu Min's backer. Therefore, they didn't go to the police station directly to get Yang Cheng out. Instead, they took a roundabout route and asked Anqin to call Yang Cheng's family. Of course, the key person to call was Guo Xiuhua. "Missin, don't be too nervous. Nothing will happen to Mr. Yang. We're just worried that things will get out of hand. Please call Mr. Yang's family first, especially Mr. Yang's mother. When the time comes, there will naturally be a solution," Yezi said softly. As a woman, she knew that when something happened to the man she loved, no matter what the situation was, she would be uncontrollably nervous and afraid. It was the same logic when Tianlong was seriously injured by the people from Sandstorm. Anqin was slightly stunned. She had never met Yang Cheng's mother. In her memory, Yang Cheng seemed to have mentioned that he was an orphan. She couldn't help but feel a little confused. "Miss, and don't hesitate. It's urgent. Tianlong said solemnly. Only then did Anshin wake up. She hurriedly nodded, but then she thought of something. She didn't know Yang Cheng's home number. Here. Yezi handed a red phone to Anshin and said, "This is the number." As the person in charge of Yang Cheng, she naturally had all the contact information for Yang Cheng. Yezi had already prepared it. However, it was obviously not suitable for her and Tianlong to contact Yang Cheng's family. After all, they were all members of the organization hiding behind the scenes. It was not suitable to find anyone else, so she thought of giving it to Anshin. Anyway, Anshin was Yang Cheng's woman, so it couldn't be wrong. These two were used to seeing Yang Cheng hooking up with many beauties. Moreover, Chiang Wei and Mo Qianni were living next door. They always thought that Yang Cheng would not hide anything. Everyone in the family knew about it, so they asked Anshin to call Guo Xiuhua. If Yang Cheng knew about it, he would definitely want to drive them out on the spot. In the eyes of the elders, he was an out-and-out playboy. Now that he had given up Anshin, wouldn't it make things worse? Would he still have a position in the family? No matter how tolerant Mother Wang and Guo Xiuhua were, they would probably roll their eyes at him, not to mention Jinxiu, who despised him for being a playboy. That would be great. Including Lin Ruoxi, he would have to face 4 pairs of supercilious eyes at home. At the thought of calling Yang Cheng's mother, Anshin would be lying if she said she was not nervous. She first downplayed the situation of Yang Cheng being arrested. She cleared her throat and took a few breaths to calm herself down. Then she carefully dialed the number on the phone. Tianlong and Yezi looked at each other and smiled bitterly. This daughter-in-law was really stressed when she saw her mother-in-law, and the pressure was even greater when she was not the real one. However, they didn't know that Anshin had almost cursed Yang Cheng thousands of times. Damn man, stinky man, he actually wanted her to tell him bad news when she talked to his mother for the first time. She was already a mistress, and after this phone call, there was no hope for her to like her in the future. He was really bad, but even though she thought about it, she still answered the phone. "Hello, who are you looking for?" A soft woman's voice came from the phone, making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Chapter 554. Since her son and daughter-in-law were all abroad for the Paris Fashion Week, the house was particularly quiet these days. However, for Guo Xiuhua, she enjoyed going shopping with her mother Wang every day, buying groceries, and occasionally chatting with her neighbors about whose sons were getting married and whose young couples were quarreling. This kind of ordinary life was something that Guo Xiuhua enjoyed very much. She didn't have to bear the burden of being the eldest daughter-in-law of the Yang family. She didn't have to be the wife of the chief, and she didn't have to be protected by personal guards everywhere she went. These days seemed glorious, but in fact, it made Guo Xiuhua feel mentally and physically exhausted all year round. Now, she handed over the charity orphanage that she had been running all these years to the foundation to manage, and wholeheartedly began to live at home. Although the internal problems of the Yang family hadn't been solved, and it was the first time that she had fallen out with Yang Pejuan in her 20-odd years of marriage, and she was disheartened, Guo Xiuhua still felt that God was treating her well after finding her eldest son who had been separated from her for 20 years, even if her son was always making her worry. Not to mention, her son's lover was living next door, and to be honest, she quite liked Chiang Wei. After all, compared to the cold Lin Ruoxi, Chiang Wei was more understanding and likable. Even though she already knew that Chiang Wei came from a mafia family and was the queen of the Red Thorn Society in Zhonghai, who said that mafia members were necessarily bad people, Guo Xiuhua wasn't a short-sighted and inflexible woman who didn't know how to be flexible. Moreover, as a mother who had neglected her duties for many years, how could Guo Xiuhua forcefully interfere with her son's love life? Even if she could, to be honest, she couldn't bear to. Therefore, Guo Xiuhua turned a blind eye. If Yang Cheng really wanted to have an affair in the future, as his mother, she would acquiesce. Even if she was disgusted by this, it wasn't uncommon for a man to have 1 or 2 lovers in the upper class. As for the daughter-in-law and son's lover, it would be up to them to decide who could win the son's favor. Of course, as a mother-in-law, she still had the right to be partial. With this thought in mind, Guo Xiuhua made delicious food from time to time and brought it to Chiang Wei to have a taste. The relationship between the two of them was much closer than that of Lin Ruoshi, the legitimate daughter-in-law. These days, Guxiuehua also found that there was another young girl living in Xiangwei's house. She was Mo Qinni, a young girl with similar looks and temperament. After the introduction, she found out that Mo Qinni was the best friend of her daughter-in-law and also the vice president of Yulei International. She was one of Lin Ruoshi's most trusted people. She couldn't help but sigh. Beautiful girls really gathered together. Looking at Mo Qinni, who was more mature and sensible than Xiangwei, the more Guxiuehua looked at her, the more she liked her. Compared with Xiangwei, Mo Qinni was a fair and above-board city female gold-collar worker. She was definitely the best choice for a good wife and mother. Her headache was that there were so many beautiful girls around her son. But why did the coldest and most difficult girl to get along with become her daughter-in-law? For a mother, whether her daughter-in-law's appearance was the most outstanding or not, she didn't think too much about it. All of this could be considered as God's will. Guxiuehua would never have thought that when Yang Cheng and Lin Ruoshi got married, it was still a contract marriage. It was just that their feelings became more and more blurry, and now they just made do with each other and didn't talk about it anymore. Just today, Guxiuehua and Mother Wang had just returned home after buying groceries. Even if Yang Cheng and Lin Ruoshi weren't home, there was still Jinxiu at home, who was preparing for the college entrance examination. As elders, the two of them treated Jinxiu like a little daughter and tried their best to cook her delicious food. This girl had a pitiful life. Ever since Park Jong-yoon from Star Moon Group came to visit, she would often be in a daze, which made everyone in the family feel pity for her. Just as they placed the meat and vegetables in the kitchen, they heard the phone outside ringing. Generally speaking, the home phone rarely rang. Yang Cheng and Lin Ruoshi didn't have many friends, so it could be said that half of the calls were made by mistake. Therefore, Guxiuehua was closer to the door, so she walked over to pick up the phone. She asked who the caller was looking for, guessing that it was a mistake again. However, after a moment of silence, a gentle, somewhat shy female voice was heard. Excuse me, is this Yang Cheng's house?" The one who spoke was naturally Anshin. At that moment, her heart was beating wildly, and her voice was trembling. Guxiuehua was slightly surprised. She could tell from the voice that it was a young girl, and she was looking for Yang Cheng. She immediately paid attention and said seriously, "Yes, this is Yang Cheng's house, and I'm his mother. Miss, is there anything I can help you with?" Anshin's breathing quickened. Indeed, it was Yang Cheng's mother. She forced herself to calm down and said, "Hello, Auntie. I wanted to tell you something. Yang Cheng, he was arrested in the West District Police Station." "What?" Guxiuehua suspected that she had heard wrongly. She hesitated and said, "Miss, could you be mistaken? My son's name is Yang Cheng, but he is currently on a business trip in Paris. How could he be arrested by the police in Zhonghai?" "It's true, Auntie. Yang Cheng returned to the country early this morning, and something happened to him at the company, and then the police just took him away." As she spoke, Anshin's tone became lower and lower. She wished that she could find a hole to hide in. If Guxiuehua asked her why Yang Cheng was arrested, should she directly say, "Your son was arrested because of me"? If Guxiuehua knew about this, she would definitely think that she was not a good woman. Not only did she seduce Yang Cheng, but she also harmed him. Anshin felt gloomy, but she had to continue communicating with Guxiuehua in order to save Yang Cheng. At this moment, Guxiuehua had calmed down. She was not an ordinary housewife. She had many years of experience traveling abroad, and she was born in a prestigious family. She quickly grasped the crux of the problem. It was not the time to figure out why Yang Cheng suddenly returned to the country and was arrested. What she needed to do now was to stabilize the situation. She could not let her son suffer in the police station. Of course, Guxiuehua also knew that Yang Cheng's martial arts were absolutely extraordinary. Even the country's secret forces could not contend against him. However, if Yang Cheng really made a move, the trouble would only snowball. "I understand," Guxiuehua said seriously. "I will handle this matter, but I hope to know the details later. May I know your name, miss?" My name is Anshin." Guo Shuihua murmured. This name sounded nice, and so did her voice. She should be a beautiful girl. Honestly, her son was not very handsome, and as a mother, she could only objectively say so. However, there were a lot of beautiful girls around him. Miss Anshin, I will go to the West Side police station later. Is it convenient for you to go with me? I want to meet you and figure out the situation face to face. Guo Shuihua was very clear-headed. Her son was in trouble, and this girl called her. It must not be an ordinary relationship. Of course, she had to meet her for any reason. As for finding out the truth, it was just an excuse. She would naturally find out the reason when she went to the police station to see Yang Cheng. Anshin was very anxious. She was happy and afraid. She was happy that she would have a chance to meet Yang Cheng's mother. She was afraid that what if she didn't like her? Moreover, as the third party, it was very likely that she didn't like her. She might even scold her for being a scourge. This was Anshin thinking too much. With Guo Shuihua's upbringing, even if she clearly thought that way, she would not say such harsh words to a young girl. Okay, Annie, I will definitely go. Even though Anshin was afraid, she did not dare to reject. To be honest, she also hoped to see Yang Cheng come out from the police station. Otherwise, Anshin would not be able to protect Anshin. After hanging up the phone, Guo Shuihua said to Mother Wang in the kitchen, Yulan, I will go out to do something. Just make something simple for lunch. Don't wait for me. Jinxiu will make something delicious for dinner when she comes back. Yulan was naturally Mother Wang's real name. Mother Wang also knew that Guo Shuihua had to take care of some work on a daily basis. Thus, she did not suspect much and responded. Naturally, Guo Shuihua would not let Wang Yulan and Jinxiu know that Yang Cheng was arrested. As long as she brought Yang Cheng out, there would be no problem. After walking out of the door, Guo Shuihua took out her phone. Although she felt that as the eldest daughter-in-law of the Yang family, it should not be a problem to go to the police station and bring Yang Cheng back. For the sake of safety, she still needed to find out the specific reason why he was arrested. The most important person in Zhonghai that she knew was naturally her husband, Yang Pejuan. However, Guo Shuihua would not take the initiative to call that man. Ever since the incident where Yin Buxue insulted Yang Cheng and Yang Pejuan did not care about it, Guo Shuihua hated that man from the bottom of her heart. How could she easily ask Yang Pejuan for help? Therefore, Guo Shuihua called Yang Jiyu, her sister-in-law. After all, Yuan Hue and Yang Jiyu controlled the biggest Yuan family in Zhonghai. They could be said to be the most powerful local tyrant in Zhonghai. All the forces in Zhonghai would have to show some respect to them. Of course, there was another reason why Guo Shuihua did this. Her sister-in-law, Yang Jiyu, was a very protective person. She was much more compassionate than Yang Pejuan. If she knew that Yang Cheng's nephew was arrested, even if she and her husband could not rescue Yang Cheng in a short time, she would definitely contact her father in Beijing, Yang Gongming. Guo Shuihua knew that as a daughter-in-law, she did not do enough for her father-in-law. Therefore, she did not dare to be thick-skinned and beg Yang Gongming for her son. Therefore, she thought of asking Yang Jiyu to inform the old man. Yang Gongming acknowledged this grandson and also felt guilty about it. As long as Yang Gongming took action, Guo Shuihua believed that no one would dare to touch Yang Cheng. Although she did not know the strength of her father-in-law, she knew that Yang Gongming was not as simple as he seemed to be based on the fact that the Yang family was still one of the 4 big families in Beijing. Chapter 555. Yang Jiyu's surprised voice came through the phone. Sister-in-law, why are you calling me? I thought you were mad at my brother and didn't want me anymore. Guo Shuihua smiled bitterly. She was actually a little embarrassed. If it wasn't for her son, she wouldn't have thought of calling Yang Jiyu. Jiyu, this isn't the time to chat. I'm calling you because of Yang Cheng, Guo Shuihua said. Yang Jiyu paused and said, What happened to Yang Cheng? Did he get into trouble again? Or did he make you angry? I don't know if he got into trouble, but it's definitely not a small problem. He was just arrested by the West District Police Station. I'm on my way there, Guo Shuihua sighed. Yang Jiyu exclaimed, What? Someone dared to arrest him? Yang Jiyu knew that Yang Cheng had an extraordinary background. She had witnessed Yang Cheng single-handedly planning how the Red Thorn Society annexed East Star overnight, and how he injured his nephew, Yang Lai, who was a true disciple of Kunlun sect. Yang Chun was a figure that even the country's secret dragon group feared. Who would be so blind as to touch him? Don't worry too much, sister-in-law. I think it's some blind guy who took the wrong medicine. I'll get way to call the police right away and explain the situation. I believe everything will be fine, Yang Jiu said calmly. Although Guo Shuahua felt that things wouldn't be so simple, she hoped that was the case. Since her daughter-in-law, Lin Ruashi, didn't have much other than cash, cars, and houses, Guo Shuahua drove a random car to the police station. It was convenient without the help of the guards. She rushed all the way to the West District Police Station. In less than 10 minutes, Guo Shuahua got out of the car and saw a few nervous people waiting for someone outside the police station. She glanced around. The most eye-catching one was a white-collared beauty in a black suit and a pleated coffee-colored skirt. She looked charming and charming. Guo Shuahua guessed that this girl was Anshin on the phone. When Anshin saw the elegant and mature woman walking towards her, she screamed in her heart, "This can't be Yang Cheng's mother. This can't be Yang Cheng's mother. How could this be?" In the end, Guo Shuahua walked to Anshin and extended her hand. She smiled gently. "Anshin, I'm Guo Shuahua, Yang Cheng's mother." Anshin almost fainted. Although her husband was very domineering, he didn't look like a man who had such a beautiful mother. The gap between the mother and son was too big. One was like a queen in the palace, and the other was like a hooligan on the street. Although she liked this hooligan very much, Anshin shook hands with Guo Shuahua in a silly way. She was so stiff that she didn't know what to say. Looking at Anshin's obedient and pitiful look, she wanted to please, but was cowering. Guo Shuahua sighed. One innocent girl. Her son's ability to harm girls was unparalleled. If she still couldn't see through Anshin's identity, then Guo Shuahua had lived for more than 40 years in vain. In fact, Anshin didn't really think that she couldn't let it go. It was just that she was the reason why Yang Chang was arrested. Even if she didn't want to, she didn't know how to say it. But now wasn't the time to think about how much her son was hiding from her. Guo Shuahua said, "Did you guys go in? What's the situation?" Anshin said, "I don't know what's wrong with the police station. We can't even go in. We hired a lawyer and just broke in, but I don't know what happened." At this moment, a bald man in a suit ran out of the police station in a panic. He was carrying a briefcase, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He seemed to be in shock. Wang Jie ran up and asked, "Lawyer Zhang, what's the situation? Why did you come out? Where's Director Yang?" Lawyer Zhang pushed Wang Jie's hand away and said angrily, "What kind of person did you offend? You guys made such a big mistake, and you still want me to bail you out? Are you trying to mess with me? You guys are on your own. I'll refund all the money to you. I'm just a small lawyer, and I can't handle this case." With that, Lawyer Zhang ran away in a huff, without explaining anything. Wang Jie was discouraged. How did this happen? Who was the other party? Lawyer Zhang isn't even afraid of the leaders of the municipal bureau. I don't think it's that simple. Lawyer Zhang not only doesn't dare to handle it, but he also doesn't dare to say anything. This situation is very serious, Zhao Tong analyzed. Guo Shuahua frowned. She realized that the situation seemed to be different from what she expected. Moreover, Yang Jiu should have called it this time. Why wasn't there any news? Therefore, Guo Shuahua, who was initially confident, became even more worried. "I'll go in and take a look." Guo Shuahua didn't allow any explanation and walked towards the police station's entrance. But before she reached the entrance, two police officers blocked Guo Shuahua's way with cold eyes and said, "We're sorry, there's a criminal being interrogated today. It's not safe inside. Please leave." "Do you know who I am? Do you know the consequences of blocking me?" Guo Shuahua glanced at them coldly. After all, she was a person of high status. Her gaze still made the police officers shrink. But for some unknown reason, the police officer said, "No matter who you are, we're just following orders." Guo Shuahua's face darkened. "I'm Guo Shuahua, the wife of Jiangnan District's Commander-in-Chief. How dare you block my way?" Commoners might not know about this title, but it would be strange if the criminal police and armed police didn't know about it. The two police officers were indeed stunned. Looking at Guo Shuahua's attire and temperament, they honestly couldn't be sure. But then, the police officer clenched his teeth and said, "Even if you're really the wife of the chief, We can't let you go. Moreover, Madam hasn't shown sufficient proof. Guo Xuehua was stunned. In the past, she had bodyguards sent by the military. Naturally, she could reveal her identity at any time. Now that her bodyguard were gone, she didn't know how to prove that she was the wife of the chief. Even if she didn't really care about this title, she really needed it at this moment. Her phone suddenly vibrated. Guo Xuehua was overjoyed. She picked it up and saw that it was Yang Jiyu calling. "Hello, Jiyu, how's it going?" Guo Xuehua's tone was a bit relaxed. She thought that Yang Jiyu must have settled the matter. That was why she called after so long. But unexpectedly, Yang Jiyu's tone was inexplicably complicated. She said, "Sister-in-law, this time, Yang Cheng seems to have really gotten himself into big trouble." Guo Xuehua's heart sank. "What happened? What did you find out?" Xin, Zhao, and Wang saw that Guo Xuehua was on the phone and her face was getting worse. They couldn't help but tremble with fear. They didn't know what exactly happened. Tianlong and Yezi clearly said that Guo Xuehua had the ability to rescue Yang Cheng. Why was there still no news? Was she lying to them? "Sister-in-law, I've asked a few people who are close to me in the police station. They told me that Yang Cheng attempted to murder Lu Min from the Lu family for a girl. This is a criminal case, and the crime is very serious." Yang Jiyu said, "Lu Min? Lu family?" Guo Xuehua suddenly recalled something. "Jiyu, are you talking about the Lu family in Beijing?" "Of course. Otherwise, how could the other Lu family have the ability to make Chief Lu go all out to arrest Yang Cheng? Besides, Chief Lu wouldn't dare to touch Yang Cheng's background." Yang Jiyu smiled bitterly. Guo Xuehua finally panicked. She said hurriedly, "Jiyu, you must help Yang Cheng. I don't know what to do now. The police won't even let me in." Yang Jiyu comforted her. "Don't worry, sister-in-law. Although it won't be easy to deal with the Lu family, the Yang family isn't a pushover either. I'll weigh his contacting brother now. I'll go and persuade him too. Yang Cheng is his son after all. He can't just leave him to die. He can forgive a mistake once, but he can't do it again." When Guo Xuehua heard that they were going to seek help from Yang Pejuan, she wanted to stop them. However, she felt that it might be effective. After all, Yang Pejuan was more of a deterrent than the Yuan family. This was the territory of the Jiangnan military district. Even the Lu family had to give face to Yang Pejuan. Therefore, even if it was a little embarrassing, Guo Xuehua had to accept it. Yang Jiyu was still worried and said, "Don't worry, sister-in-law. If brother is really that ruthless, even if I have to bear the consequences of being scolded by father, I will call father and beg him to help. You should be relieved now, right?" Guo Xuehua was relieved. She had been waiting for these words. She even hoped that Yang Jiyu would call Yang Gongming immediately. However, she knew that it was impossible. Yang Gongming had ignored the outside world for many years. Unless he was willing, he would definitely be unhappy if the younger generation came to him for help. After the call was hung up, Xin couldn't help it anymore. She came forward and asked timidly, "Andy, Yang Cheng, how is he?" Guo Xuehua's gaze turned cold. She stared at Xin and said, "You're the one who provoked that Lu Min, right?" Xin's legs were a little weak. She didn't expect that the gentle and beautiful woman would suddenly look at her with such a cold gaze. However, she still nodded her head. "Do you know who Lu Min is? Do you know how much trouble you brought to my son?" Guo Xuehua raised her voice a few octaves. Xin's eyes started to well up. She was a strong and independent woman. However, facing the blame of her beloved man's mother, and this was the first time they met, Xin felt wronged and blamed herself. She couldn't hold back her tears. "Auntie, I'm sorry. I know that Lu Min's Lu family is a family in Beijing. Even my father doesn't dare to provoke them. They must be very powerful, but I don't know how it ended up like this," Xin sobbed. Guo Xuehua didn't soften up. They were both women. She didn't have any protective feelings for the fairer sex. She sneered, "A family in Beijing? Very powerful? Do you think that if Lu Min's Lu family was just a family in Beijing with some power, they could really make things so bad? Do you know what Lu Min's real background is?" Chapter 556. Yang Cheng, who was inside the police station, had no idea what was going on outside. After he was brought to the interrogation room by a few policemen, Chief Lu dismissed the unimportant policeman and ordered someone to bring in a document. He placed it on the table and looked at Yang Chung coldly, saying, "Yang Chung, sign this." It wasn't the first time Yang Chung came to the police station, but the previous time, the chief was always Choi Yun. Now that there was someone else, he really wasn't used to it. Looking at the document on the table, he was instantly amused. It turned out to be a confession. On it was the crime of him deliberately murdering Lu Min, as well as a series of small crimes, such as extramarital affairs. Adding all these crimes together, even if he wasn't sentenced to death, he would still have to spend 10 to 20 years in prison. "Chief Lu, why did you ask me to sign it without even interrogating me? This isn't right." Yang Chung smiled playfully. "Whether it's right or not, it's not up to you to decide." Chief Lu sneered. "I've already seen your resume. Your background information is very problematic, and you've been brought to the police station several times, but you left without any punishment. I seriously suspect that you have connections with bad people, and it's very likely that you're an undocumented immigrant from overseas. Moreover, today, you made a move on Chief Lu. The evidence is conclusive, and the forensic doctor has confirmed it. You won't be able to escape the punishment of the law. I advise you not to play any petty tricks, and don't waste time. Sign what you need to sign, so that we don't have to make you confess to your crimes personally." The threat in his words was already very strong. Yang Chung touched his nose. He initially thought that after he went to the police station, there would at least be a lawyer coming to stabilize the situation. But now, it seemed that Lu Min's power was not to be underestimated. He actually had the intention of covering the sky with one hand, and even a lawyer wasn't allowed to come in. Now, it seemed that his idea of getting bailed out and then finding a way to resolve this matter was not going to work. The other party was forcing him to give in. But what puzzled Yang Chung the most was that the people from the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade actually didn't come out to solve this matter. What did that mean? Could it be that they didn't dare to offend Lu Min because of him? But no matter what the reason was, Yang Chung was really unhappy. He knocked his fingers on the table twice and had a plan. He asked, "Director Lu, what if I don't sign it?" "You're not signing?" Bureau Chief Lu grinned. "Then we can only enforce the law strictly. There's no need to be polite to a murderer like you." With that, Chief Lu waved his hand, and 4 big men in police uniforms blocked the door with batons in their hands, staring at Yang Chung fiercely. Yang Chung clicked his tongue. Good heavens, just a moment ago, it was intentional murder, and in the blink of an eye, the label of murderer was pinned on him. He was indeed a murderer, but no matter how many people he killed, it would not hinder Lu Min. To be honest, for Yang Chung to go to the police station with these guys, it was already a very patient approach. He also had a lot of considerations. First of all, his headache was starting to act up again. He hadn't checked Jane yet, and he was always worried that it would worsen if he killed someone. Although in the eyes of others, Yang Chung might be a devil, Yang Chung himself didn't want to really become a murderer one day. Furthermore, Yang Chung wasn't a lone wolf who could do whatever he wanted. Even if he really had the ability to destroy the other party, he was worried that it might implicate the people around him to take revenge on his family and friends. Therefore, he didn't want to be too arrogant when he could handle things in a low-profile manner. After all, he was also a person with a family background, and it was impossible for him to ignore everything. As the saying goes, forgive people when you can. Yang Chung originally thought that he would just take a step back, but he didn't expect that the other party wanted to drive him to a dead end. Where is Lu Min? Yang Chung thought for a moment and asked. Bureau Chief Lu's name is not something you can call ugh. Bureau Chief Lu sneered contemptuously, but he didn't expect his neck to be grabbed by a hand, and he couldn't speak. Yang Chung said in Chief Lu's ear, I'm not in the mood to listen to your nonsense. I ask you, where's Lu Min? If you dare to say half a word of nonsense, I will kill you now. He wasn't a good person. Since the other party spared no effort to kill him, Yang Chung didn't intend to deal with this matter easily. Lu Min wanted to touch his woman and even wanted to kill him, so he simply let him die first. As for his family's background, as long as it wasn't Homing's people, Yang Chung didn't think that Hua Xia could stop him. The madman who had calmed down went crazy again. He was crazier than those who were crazy on ordinary days. Bureau Chief Lu's whole body was covered in cold sweat. He felt the dark and bloody aura on Yang Cheng's body. It was as difficult to resist as 1,000 needles piercing into his bones. The 4 policemen who were about to make a move were stunned. They didn't know what to do. Looking at Yang Cheng's seemingly calm but terrifying expression, they didn't dare to move. Yang Cheng let go of his hand and let Bureau Chief Lu speak. Bureau Chief Lu coughed a few times. His face was pale. He raised his trembling hand and pointed at Yang Cheng. While he was shocked by this man's horrifying skills, he remembered that the person who asked him to do this was Lu Min. He suppressed his fear and said in a low and ruthless voice, "Yang Cheng, don't be ungrateful. Don't think that you can make me afraid of you. If you dare to touch even a hair on my head, the Lu family will never let you go." You? Chief Lu didn't have the chance to continue, because Yang Chun had slapped him on the right side of his face. Bureau Chief. The 4 police officers turned pale with fright. After being slapped by Yang Cheng, Bureau Chief Lu's head turned 180 degrees. With a ka-ka sound, Bureau Chief Lu's face had already turned his back. His eyes were wide open as he breathed his last. In fact, he was still standing. A few traces of scarlet appeared in Yang Cheng's eyes. Bureau Chief Lu's words finally ignited his anger. In order to not offend Lu Min, he ignored his warning. Then he deserved to die. Raising his head, Yang Cheng's gaze was like that of a ferocious beast. It swept across the 4 police officers' shocked faces and said in a low voice, "Tell me, where is Lu Min?" The 4 police officers were completely stunned. This man had actually killed the chief of the police station with a slap without any warning. Had he lost his mind? "If you don't say it, you will die too." Yang Cheng frowned. The 4 police officers felt the pressure on their faces and felt as if the entire interrogation room was about to collapse. How could they know where Lu Min had gone? They wanted to say, "I don't know," but they didn't even have the strength to open their mouths. At this time, the other police officers who saw the scene in the interrogation room from the surveillance camera were in a mess. How could they sit still after seeing the chief killed by the suspect? With a bang, the door to the interrogation room was kicked open. "What's going on? Raise your F***king hands." Bureau Chief. Bureau Chief. The dozens of police officers in the police station all held their guns and rushed to the periphery of the interrogation room. When they found that their bureau chief was indeed dead, they panicked and didn't know what to do. They could only point the muzzles of 20 to 30 pistols at Yang Cheng with the safety bolts off. It was obvious that they were prepared to shoot Yang Cheng at any time. Only then did the 4 police officers react. They quickly took out their guns and shouted, "Yang Cheng, raise your hands, you murderer, or else we will shoot." This murderer was indeed a crime, but the person who died was the chief of the police station. While everyone present was shocked, they also gritted their teeth. "Where's Lu Min?" Yang Cheng didn't care about these black holes and continued to ask coldly. Although the police officers all had guns, they had really shot at people a few times. Seeing that Yang Cheng actually asked them with a gloomy face while facing so many guns, they couldn't help but be stunned on the spot, not knowing what to do. Furthermore, they didn't know who Yang Cheng was, nor who Lu Min was. They really didn't know anything about him. Yang Cheng was silent for a while. Seeing that no one answered, he tacitly agreed that these guys really didn't know, so he walked out. Even if they didn't say anything, he would still find Lu Min stop. "Don't move. If you go any further, we will shoot." A few bold police officers roared. Yang Cheng didn't care about them. To him, even if a bullet was shot out from his skin, it wouldn't be a threat at all. The next moment, the police finally couldn't take it anymore. The 4 police officers who were threatened by Yang Cheng first took the lead and pulled the trigger of their pistols. Outside the police station, under the gloomy sky, the atmosphere was also very gloomy. Listening to Guishuahua's loud scolding, Anshin was already speechless. Zhao Teng and Wang Jie both pitted on Xin, but they couldn't interrupt. There were also people with discerning eyes, and they could see that Director Yang's mother wasn't simple. After scolding for a long time, Guishuahua was finally tired. She was out of breath, and her face was pale. She stopped talking and let out a long sigh, and her eyes were red. Anshin was already sobbing, and her tears kept falling. She hated herself for always getting into trouble and hated herself for being a host. She couldn't defend herself against Guo Shuehua's scolding. Everything she had today was almost saved by Yang Cheng, but she brought such trouble to Yang Cheng. Even if Guo Shuehua didn't say anything, she couldn't erase the hatred in her heart. Guo Shuehua closed her eyes for a while, trying to calm herself down as much as possible. She heard Anshin sobbing, and when she turned her head, she saw that the girl was crying her eyes out. Her pretty face was full of sadness, but there was no trace of sadness. Guo Shuehua also realized that she seemed to have been too harsh on Anshin. This girl was really worried about her son. Moreover, it wasn't her fault that a beautiful woman attracted other men. Guo Shuehua was once young, and there was no right or wrong in these matters between men and women. Sigh. Guo Shuehua couldn't help but feel a trace of guilt in her heart. She reached out to hold one of Anshin's hands, picked it up, and gently patted it. She said warmly, "Don't cry, it's my fault." Anshin's delicate body trembled slightly. She raised her head in disbelief, and a pair of tearful eyes looked at Guo Shuehua blankly. Guo Shuehua smiled bitterly and said, "Missin, I lost my composure. I apologize to you. It wasn't your fault, and I shouldn't have scolded you like this." No. Anshin hurriedly shook her head and said miserably, "Auntie, it's my fault. I couldn't help it all, but I caused trouble for Yang Cheng. You can scold me or hit me, but I really hate myself. I should have known that Lu Min's identity was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, my dad wouldn't have been so afraid." Looking at the girl's self-reproachful and hateful expression, Guo Shuehua also felt a burst of heartache. Guo Shuehua had been through many hardships, and her judgment of people was not ordinary. Naturally, she could tell whether Anshin was sincere or not. What a good girl. Her tears were all from the bottom of her heart. Her heart was also tied to her son. Even if it wasn't an honorable identity, how could she have the heart to scold a woman who loved her son so deeply? Wang Jie and Zhao Teng, who were at the side, also sighed in their hearts. They were quite touched, and Wang Jie's eyes were even more misty with tears. In the company, many people knew about the ambiguous relationship between Anshin's secretary and Director Yang. As Yang Cheng's left and right hands, of course they knew it better. However, they all thought that the two of them were just fooling around. They didn't expect that a rich young lady like Anshin would have such deep feelings for him. "Missin, I'll call you Anshin," Guo Shuehua said to Anshin with a bit of shame. Anshin's sobs stopped abruptly. She didn't expect that Guo Shuehua would suddenly call her that. In a sense, it was a certain recognition of her. If it was on a normal day, she would definitely be overjoyed. After all, this was a man's mother's affection for a mistress. However, at this moment, Yang Cheng was still in the police station. She didn't know how he was doing, so she could only nod with a bitter smile. Guo Shuehua lowered her eyes sadly and said, "You don't know how important Yang Cheng is to me. I lost him painfully for more than 20 years, and it wasn't easy for me to find him. I spent a lot of effort to stay by his side. If something bad happens to him, I really don't have the courage to live anymore." Anshin didn't expect that Guo Shuehua and Yang Cheng had such a past. No wonder she didn't hear Yang Cheng mention that he had a mother before. It turned out that they met after more than 20 years. She wanted to comfort Guo Shuehua, but before Anshin could speak, she heard continuous gunshots. "It's in the police station," Zhao Teng exclaimed. The four of them turned their heads to look, and their faces turned pale. Anshin and Guo Shuehua's heart sank. However, before they could rush in, a man and a woman had already rushed into the police station in front of them. Chapter 557. These two people were Sky Dragon and Yezi, who had been watching the situation from the side. When they heard gunshots in the police station, they knew that the situation was not good. They thought that with Guo Shuehua's means, she could contact the Yang family and settle the matter. Unexpectedly, they were too late. By the time Sky Dragon and Yi rushed to the periphery of the police station interrogation room, the gunshots had already stopped. The crackling sound of gunshots, which sounded like popping beans, was at least 100. It was caused by the dozens of policemen present at the scene who had all used up their handheld bullets. In the smoke-filled office of the police station, all the police officers were stunned and speechless, because the target of their collective provocation was completely fine. Through the white smoke, Sky Dragon and Yezi looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They saw the expressionless man in a short-sleeved shirt and baggy pants walk out of the crowd of policemen calmly. Everywhere he walked, the ground was full of empty magazines. Was he still human? Was he shooting a movie? The group of policemen stared at the guns in their hands, and even suspected that the guns in the police station were fake. Were they special effects? Sky Dragon and Yezi naturally knew that the bullets would be blocked by Yang Cheng's protective True Chi before they could even get close to him. It was already very kind of Yang Cheng not to reflect the bullets back. What they were most afraid of was that Yang Cheng would become angry and massacre the entire police station. Actually, when Yang Cheng was shot by a group of people earlier, he did have that thought, but he forcefully suppressed it. He knew that most of the policemen were innocent. Moreover, he would definitely lose control of his brain if he were to kill dozens of ordinary people at once. Therefore, he used all his strength to circulate the endless resolve restoration scripture to suppress his killing intent. When Yang Cheng saw Sky Dragon and Yezi arrive at the scene, he glanced at them casually and then walked out of the police station. The scarlet in his eyes was a little more intense than before. The group of policemen no longer had the courage to stop him. It was good enough that they did not faint. "Brother Yang, where are you going?" Yezi came in front of Yang Cheng and asked anxiously. Yang Cheng glanced at her and said, "Get out of the way." "I won't." Yezi shook her head and said loudly, "You must be going to find Lu Min, Brother Yang. Listen to me. Lu Min's backer is not only the Lu family, his grandfather is." Before Yezi could finish, Yang Cheng had already grabbed her arm and thrown her away. Yezi screamed. She was actually average in the dragon group, so she could not withstand the force of Yang Cheng's throw. Fortunately, Sky Dragon caught her in time and saved her from the pain of hitting the wall. "I don't care who he is. If you can't tell me where he is, don't stop me. Don't think that I will give you face just because I know you." Yang Cheng said coldly and continued to walk out. He still wanted to say something but was stopped by Sky Dragon, who shook his head and said solemnly, "Don't say anything. He won't listen to anything. Didn't you see his eyes? He really wants to kill people. What should we do? If something happens to Lu Min, Beijing will be in chaos." Yezi said worriedly. Sky Dragon sighed. "Let's stabilize the situation first. Anyway, we've already informed Lu Min. He could take a plane or a train and leave Zhonghai as soon as possible. It's best if he escapes back to Beijing. Otherwise, who can stop that killer?" Yezi bit her lips helplessly. She knew that they could not do anything. She said bitterly, "It's all that Lu Min's fault. I'm so angry." Sky Dragon looked at his wife's angry face and could only shake his head with a bitter smile. He then looked at the dumbfounded police officers and felt a headache coming on. These people saw an unusual person and could not be easily revealed. This mess had to be cleaned up by the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade for Yang Cheng. On the other hand, Yang Cheng took out his phone as he walked out of the police station. He called the captain of the Sea Eagles, Mullen. As the Berserk Dragon Reserve team was nearing the end of their training, Mullen had already brought another member, Fanny, back to the temporary base in Zhonghai. The last few training subjects of the Berserk Dragon Reserve team did not require the participation of the two actual combat instructors. Their mission had already been completed. "Your Majesty Pluto, what can I do for you?" Mullen knew that Yang Cheng had returned to Zhonghai early. Chief Sauron had already informed the Sea Eagles of what happened in Europe. Mullen and the others were still excited about their idol's killing spree when they received a call from Yang Cheng. His tone became especially sincere. Yang Cheng did not waste any time and said coldly, "Help me find out who he is. He's called Lu Min, around 30 years old. He's a department-level official. I want his exact location. I'll give you 3 minutes." Mullen replied with a yes and immediately hung up. At this time, Guo Xiuhua, On Xin, and the others ran over from the entrance of the police station. The guards at the entrance knew that something had happened inside and did not stop them. Guo Xiuhua saw that Yang Cheng was as good as new and did not seem to be injured. She immediately calmed down and hugged Yang Chung with tears in her eyes. She said emotionally, "Yang Chung, what happened? They didn't make things difficult for you, did they? What's with the gunshots?" Anshin also breathed a sigh of relief. Although she knew that Yang Cheng's identity was extraordinary and that he was even more skilled, she was still worried. Seeing that Yang Chung was fine, her guilt lessened a little. Yang Cheng's heart softened and the scarlet in his eyes faded a little. The concern of his family and loved ones was something that he could not bear to part with. It was for these people who truly loved him that he was willing to stay in Zhonghai, even if he was constantly being monitored. Even if he could not summon the wind and rain like he could in foreign countries, and blood would be spilled on the spot. However, it was also this moment of warmth that made Yang Cheng's murderous intent grow even stronger. That's right, for the sake of his family and loved ones, a hidden danger like Lu Min must die. Anshin, bring my mom home. I have something to do. Yang Chung turned around and said to Anshin. Anshin was stunned. She did not know what Yang Chung meant. Yang Chung, what do you want to do? Guo Xuehua realized that the situation was not good. She said anxiously, "Son, don't be rash. I know you can't take this lying down. I also know that you're very skilled, but Lu Min is not that simple. His grandfather is someone that even your grandfather might not be able to suppress." Yang Chung smiled. "I don't care who he is or who his grandfather is. I'm relying on my own strength. I don't need the help of the Yang family." After that, Yang Chung said to Zhao Teng and Wang Jie, "Help Anshin and send my mom home. Don't worry about anything else. Go back to the company and continue working." Guo Xuehua was not willing to let go. She wanted to persuade him, but Yang Chung did not want to waste any more time. There were some things that he did not have time to explain. Therefore, Yang Chung directly transferred a stream of vital energy into Guo Xuehua's body, making Guo Xuehua fall asleep. Then, he passed his mother to Anshin, who was still in a daze, and asked Anshin to support her. "Take care of our mom and do what I say," Yang Chung said lightly. In a flash, he had already left the police station. Wang Jie and Zhao Teng were stunned on the spot. They did not expect that the usually jovial director was actually a legendary martial arts master. As for Anshin, other than worry, she felt sweet inside. What Yang Chung said was our mom. Yang Cheng's figure appeared outside the police station. He walked to the side of the road and was about to take a taxi to Lu Min's destination. At this time, his phone finally vibrated. Yang Chung picked up the phone and Molin's voice came through. "Your Majesty Pluto, I've found it. Lu Min, who is around 30 years old, is only the director of Zhonghai Radio and Television General Administration. The signal shows that this person is now heading to Zhonghai International Airport. He has booked a ticket to Yanjing, and he will take off in an hour." Airport. A cold light flashed in Yang Cheng's eyes. He sneered and said, "Got it. Keep an eye on his whereabouts and inform me if there are any changes." Just as Yang Chung was about to hang up, Molin suddenly said, "Your Majesty Pluto, please allow me to say a few more words. Are you going to kill Lu Min?" Yang Chung frowned. His subordinates rarely dared to ask him questions. What was wrong with Molin? Molin struggled a little and said, "Please allow me to speak frankly. If your Majesty Pluto stays in Huaxia, it will be very disadvantageous." Yang Chung narrowed his eyes and said, "What do you want to say?" "I'm in a hurry." Molin also seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. He said, "According to the information, Lu Min's father is the head of the Lu family in Yanjing. He is a core member of the Ministry of Culture. This is nothing, but his mother is the biological daughter of Li Mo's Hen, the head of the Li family, one of the 4 big families in Yanjing. Li Mo's Hen is the current vice premier of the State Council of Huaxia. He is an important figure in the political circle of Huaxia." Yang Chung frowned. He had heard from Tang Wan that the 4 big families in Yanjing were the Ning, Li, Yang, and Tang families. The Ning family was the most powerful, while the Tang family's head, Shang, was relatively weak. The Yang family had always stood strong because Yang Gongming did not fall. As for the Li family, he did not know much about them, nor did he have the mood to find out. Listening to Molin's words, it seemed that the Li family had more than just a vice premier. Otherwise, there was no reason for them to stop him. As expected, Molin continued. Although Li Moshen's position on the surface is the vice premier of the State Council, second only to Ning Guangyao of the Ning family. However, the real power that Li Moshen wields is the director of the State Council of Huaxia. In terms of position, he is even higher than Kai Yunxing of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade. It's just that the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade has autonomy. Moreover, the eldest grandson of the Li family, Li Dun, and Yin Bun of the Yin family are known as the two kings of Yinjing. Li Dun controls almost two-thirds of the most elite special forces in Huaxia. Listening to Molin's continuous narration, Yang Cheng's heart finally moved a little. His face turned solemn. Director of the State Council of Yinjing? In other words, he was the head of spies. The most frightening thing about a place like the State Council was not how strong its military force was, but the information that it held was enough to ruin anyone's reputation. No matter how high one's position was, no matter how glorious one was, everyone made mistakes. It was hard to guarantee that there was a stain on one's record. The higher one stood, the more afraid they were of these stains being exposed. Li Moshen had been in charge of the State Council of Huaxia for no less than 20 years. It was impossible for him to be so stable without any special means. For such a person, unless one did not provoke him, once he was angered, it was hard to guarantee that he would come up with information that would make the enemy unable to rise again forever. It could be said that in Yinjing, the rich and powerful would rather provoke Ning Guangyao. At most, they would just fight it out on the surface, and there would still be a chance of turning things around. However, they did not dare to provoke Li Moshen, who had a large amount of information on the dark side. Fighting with the head of spies? You would lose before it even started. As for the eldest grandson of the Li family, Li Dun, he actually controlled more than half of the special forces in Huaxia at such a young age. He even held the trump card in his hands. Just like Yin Bun of the Yin family, one was a young leader in the field of scientific research, and the other was a young leader in the field of special forces. That was why they were known as the two kings. Although spies and special forces were of no threat to Yang Cheng, it did not mean that they were useless to the people around him. Lu Min was Li Moshen's biological grandson. If he touched him, and the Li family did not react at all, then it would be humiliating. It would be better for him to voluntarily remove his name from the four major families of Yinjing. Therefore, if Yang Cheng really killed Lu Min, the Lu family would not be able to fight back. The problem was that once the Li family made their move, even if they could not do anything to Yang Cheng, it would be much easier to deal with the people around Yang Cheng. Moreover, if Yang Cheng really fought with the Li family until blood flowed like a river, it would be a huge disaster for Huaxia. The Security Bureau and the Special Forces would definitely be mobilized to fight against Yang Cheng. If Yang Cheng killed all these important people, the political situation and military deployment of Huaxia would definitely be in chaos. It would even attract the countries that were eyeing Huaxia covetously, which would give them a chance to take advantage of. At that time, Yang Cheng would be no different from a sinner of Huaxia. What was the point of staying in Huaxia? What made Yang Cheng even more hesitant was that since Li Moshen was in charge of the Security Bureau, it was impossible for him not to know his identity. He must have already taken precautions against Yang Cheng. If he acted rashly, if the higher-ups of Huaxia were in chaos, it would lead to a crisis for the country. He could not guarantee that the people from Hongming would not act again. That would be really troublesome. No wonder Wishuawa said that they were people that even Yang Gongming might not be able to control. The Li family's grandfather and grandson were indeed not to be underestimated. Even if he wanted to act, he had to think of a foolproof plan. At this moment, far away from the road, 3 military jeeps sped towards where Yang Cheng was. In the blink of an eye, they braked in front of Yang Cheng. A few sturdy men in military uniforms got out of the car and lined up in front of Yang Cheng. From the car in the middle, a burly man with a straight face got out. Who else could it be but Yang Pejuan? Chapter 558. Seeing Yang Cheng's indifferent face, Yang Pejuan felt an indescribable bitterness in his heart. After a lot of investigations and seeing with his own eyes, he had a general understanding of Yang Cheng's identity and background. Although he didn't want to admit it, his eldest son, whom he thought he would never see again in this life, was indeed more important than him now. Moreover, if the Yang family wanted to continue to be one of the four big families after Yang Goming's death, they might have to rely on Yang Cheng's help. Especially when he had lost the election, his father, Yang Gongming, had scolded him more than once for Yang Cheng. No matter how stupid Yang Pejuan was, he knew that Yang Cheng was very important to the Yang family. Of course, Yang Pejuan also thought that if it weren't for Yang Cheng's sudden appearance, he wouldn't have lost the election. Therefore, Yang Pejuan didn't want the relationship between him and Yang Cheng to worsen, but he couldn't put on a good face to Yang Cheng. When he went to find Guo Xiuhua, he was stopped by Yang Cheng at the door, which was a contradictory example. For half of his life, he had spent most of his time on how to make the Yang family glorious. Therefore, when he thought about the relationship between him and Yang Cheng, he thought about the value and interest behind a person, but he didn't think about how to treat his son as a father, let alone compensate Yang Cheng for his fatherly love. When he placed Yang Cheng in the orphanage, Yang Pejuan didn't think he did anything wrong. For the sake of the overall situation of the Yang family, he cut the Gordian knot and was selfless. It was this kind of thinking that only wanted to push himself to the right position that made Yang Pejuan unable to understand why his beloved wife would leave him. It had to be said that this was also the sorrow of this high-ranking military officer, a descendant of a large family. "Where are you going?" Yang Pejuan asked coldly as he stopped in front of Yang Cheng. Yang Cheng frowned. He stopped in his tracks and said indifferently, "Move." "I've heard about it from your aunt." Yang Pejuan's gaze was solemn as he said, "For the sake of a mere merchant's daughter, you're going to kill someone so viciously. Don't you understand that the Liu family is so easily provoked? Do you know that behind them is one of the four great clans, the Li clan?" Yang Cheng was not interested in listening to this man's nonsense. He originally wanted to consider preparing some backup plans to deal with the possible counterattack of the Li family. But Yang Pejuan's cold and threatening words directly caused the scarlet in his eyes to surge. "The more you try to stop me, the more I want to kill you. You came at the right time. It saves me the trouble of stopping a taxi." The military license plate can also be used for speeding. Yang Cheng glanced at the military jeep behind the soldier and walked over. Yang Pejuan did not expect that Yang Cheng would not even reply to him, and even wanted to snatch the jeep to chase after them. He was instantly enraged and said with a dark face, "Unfilial son, how dare you? Do you want the Yang family to fall out with the Li family because of you?" Yang Cheng turned around abruptly. His eyes were filled with coldness and murderous intent. "Let me tell you, I have nothing to do with you. If you dare to say one more word, I will cripple one of your hands. If you say two more words, I will cripple both of your legs. If you say three more words, I will break your neck." Even though Yang Pejuan had seen bloody battles at the border, he had never seen someone look at him with such an extremely ferocious and gloomy gaze. It was as if he was standing under a gray sky filled with corpses, unable to find any signs of life, and despair emerged from the bottom of his heart. He did not know that if he was not Yang Cheng's biological father and involved too many people around Yang Cheng, his words just now would be enough for Yang Cheng to kill him. However, Yang Cheng's warning was obviously effective. Yang Pejuan stood there with a pale face and did not say a word. The soldiers were burning with anger. This young man was too arrogant, and they had to teach him a lesson on behalf of their leader, who knew that when Yang Cheng's gaze swept across them, everyone's hands went limp and they did not even have the strength to raise their guns, not to mention stopping Yang Cheng. When Yang Cheng walked past, the few of them subconsciously opened up a path for Yang Cheng to find a jeep and get in. He could only watch as the jeep started up and sped away. Yanjing, the military compound where the Yang family resided. In a spacious back garden, green grass and flowers bloomed like a brocade. It was obvious that someone was diligently taking care of the garden. Yang Gongming, who was wearing an old-fashioned gray shirt and a pair of linen pants, was sitting on a wrought tan chair. He held the morning paper in his hand and wore a pair of presbyopic glasses as he carefully read the news from various fields. There was only a white porcelain cup beside the old man. The fragrant tea was faint, and white steam rose from it. It was freshly brewed hot tea. The entire courtyard was quiet. Although the old man looked kind and amiable, and no one would feel pressured, everyone in the Yang residence knew that when Yang Gongming was quietly reading, no one but one person was allowed to disturb him. San Yang, an old woman with a face full of wrinkles, walked out from between the pillars of the courtyard. She carried a plate of fresh mung bean pastries and gently placed it on the table beside Yang Gongming. Yang Gongming put down the newspaper and smiled warmly at San Yang. "You've worked hard. Have a seat. I haven't talked to you for a while." "Master, don't you read the newspaper?" San Yang smiled warmly. The wrinkles on her face smoothed out. "Most of the things in the newspaper are fake. Whether I read it or not, it's just to pass the time." Yang Gongming put the newspaper aside and asked, "Tell me, what's going on outside recently? This old man doesn't go out all day. I can't really be a frog at the bottom of a well." San Yang nodded and sat on another rattan chair. In this courtyard, only she had the right to sit on the same level as Yang Gongming. There hasn't been much happening in Yin Jing recently. After the election, the Yin family's momentum grew. Yin Qingtian is also considered a capable person, and he distributed the benefits to all parties. However, Ning Guangyao was re-elected as the premier, and the Ning family is still firmly in power. However, I heard that the eldest son of the Ning family, Ning Guodong, got into some trouble, and he's been staying at home all day. I'm not sure what's going on, but there's a rumor that he's suffering from some illness, and I didn't bother to look into it. The Ning family is considered to be at the peak of their power when it comes to Ning Guangyao's generation. I met Ning Guodong a few years ago. This junior is not broad-minded enough, and he won't amount to much. I'm afraid that once Ning Guangyao falls, the Ning family will have no one to carry on. As the saying goes, prosperity leads to decline, and it's hard to guarantee that they'll be removed from the four great clans, Yang Gongming said leisurely. San Yang didn't comment on it, and continued with a smile. "Speaking of juniors, the second son of the Yin family, Yin Bushu, was injured by young Master Chen for some trivial matters. Although he's recovered now, I heard that he's still plotting against young Master Chen. However, his elder brother, Yin Buin, has suppressed the matter. Speaking of which, Yin Buin does have some talent. Not only is he a capable person in terms of technology, but he's also a meticulous strategist and knows himself as well as the enemy. Unfortunately, compared to Li Dun from the Li family, Yin Buin's character is lacking. Yin Qingtian has a good grandson, but if he doesn't push the Yin family to the peak of glory, he'll definitely fall into a bottomless abyss. It all depends on the Yin family's luck. I like Li Dun more, but he's too fierce and lacks some flexibility. He's a talented general, not a commander. Otherwise, his future would be limitless. I don't know how that old Foxley Moe's hen could raise such a contrasting grandson." Yang Gongming's lips curled into a smile, and he continued, "That brat Yang Chung is also restless. He destroyed the Zheng family and caused trouble for that girl from the Kai family. Could it be that he wants to go after the Yin family as well?" San Yang smiled bitterly. Young Master Chen isn't someone who initiates trouble. Most of the trouble is caused by the women around him. In this aspect, he's very different from Master and young Master Pajuan. Yang Gongming laughed heartily. He naturally understood San Yang's meaning. The members of the Yang family, no matter how they behaved, were mostly infatuated with love. Whether it was him, Yang Pajuan, or his grandson Yang Lai, they were all devoted to only one woman. Only this eldest grandson, who was lost at a young age, had a string of peach blossoms, each of them an outstanding beauty. He didn't know if God knew that the Yang family had a small number of people for generations, giving birth to such an anomaly. From Yang Gongming's point of view, although having more women would affect the family's reputation, the current era was a far cry from his era. Back then, even getting pregnant before marriage was seen as a disgraceful act. In today's world, marriage mostly depended on whether the woman was pregnant or not. Marrying with a pregnant belly was a common occurrence. You're the son of a prominent family, and if you only love one woman for your entire life, others would think that you're pretending to be virtuous. If you keep more lovers, people would think that it's normal. Therefore, although Yang Gongming felt that Yang Cheng was a little too much of a playboy, he didn't dislike it. Master, San Yang has something that I'm not sure if I should say, San Yang said hesitantly. Yang Gongming waved his hand. Between you and me, there's nothing that can't be said. Master, although young Master Chun is getting along well with young Madam, he doesn't acknowledge the relationship between Commander and young Master Lai. Under such circumstances, do you really want young Master Chun to inherit the family? San Yang asked. Yang Gongming took a porcelain cup from the side, took a sip, put it down, and sighed. If he's willing, that's naturally the best. If he's unwilling, I can only settle for the next best thing, and let Pajuan inherit. Although Pajuan is too obsessed, we can only blame ourselves. The Yang family owes him too much. It's understandable that he doesn't want to come back, but I have an inexplicable feeling that this child will come back one day. San Yang's narrowed eyes were filled with an unpredictable expression. Finally, she sighed softly. San Yang will do my best to make Master's wish come true. Yang Cheng shook his head. San Yang, you've always said that everything in this world has its own principles, and it can't be forced. I don't expect everything to go my way. I just leave it to fate. Moreover, my body is still strong. I'm not in a hurry. At this moment, a servant anxiously ran over from a nearby doorway, holding a wireless phone in his hand. He said respectfully, Master, Miss suddenly called and insisted that you answer it immediately. Yang Gongming was puzzled as to why the servant would suddenly run in without any regard for the rules. Once he heard that it was his daughter, he suddenly understood. He thought of Yang Jiu. She was also a troublemaker. He thought that she would have peace after marrying to Zhonghai, but for the past 20 years, she still called him every few days, either to flatter him or to ask for his help. It was only because she was his daughter that he indulged her a little. If Yang Pijuan dared to act like this, he would definitely give him a good kick. Picking up the phone, Yang Gongming said in a bad mood, Girl, what do you want from me again? Can't you let your old father worry less? On the other end of the phone, Yang Jiu said anxiously, Dad, this time, I'm really not looking for you for my own matters. It's your precious grandson, that brat Yang Cheng, who's going crazy. Yang Cheng. Yang Gongming immediately tensed up. From Yang Jiu's tone, he knew that the situation was not good, but he still said calmly, Tell me in detail. I'm listening. A minute later, Yang Gongming hung up and passed the phone to the servant, dismissing him. Although she was not close enough to listen to the phone, San Yang seemed to hear everything clearly. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said, Master, I was just saying that young Master Chun is constantly causing trouble because of a woman. You really test whatever you say. Yang Gongming pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said in a low voice, This brat thinks that he's invincible just because he went on a killing spree in Europe and killed 2 feathered beasts. Li Mozhen is famous for being protective of his own people. His grandson is Li Moshen's precious daughter's flesh and blood. How could he be touched so easily? There's no time to lose. Li Mozhen already knows young Master Chen's identity, and he's also one of the few people who know about Hongming. He definitely won't do anything pointless. With his methods, if his grandson is really killed, he'll definitely purposely blow the matter up without a care in the world. The information in the Security Bureau is enough to stir up a storm in Yanjing. Whether it's to ally with other families to deal with young Master Chun, or to deal with our Yang family, it's enough to cause chaos in Huaxia. If that's the case, it'll be hard to guarantee that the Hongming emissary will be forced to deal with young Master Chun. After all, the Li family is the key to maintaining the political balance. It's better for this old woman to make a trip to Zhonghai. San Yang stood up. Hongming emissary. Yang Gongming looked at the old woman with a complicated expression. What have you seen by them? San Yang lowered her head and smiled. I can hide for a while, but I can't hide forever. Young Master Chen already possesses those people's godhood, and his identity has already become a taboo in Hongming. It's a condition for Hongming's people to make a move. If it wasn't for the fact that young Master Chun cultivates the endless resolve restoration scripture at the same time and is close to that door, Hongmeng emissary would have killed him just based on the previous troubles. If he really causes turmoil in Hua Xia's political situation, when that Hongmeng emissary makes a move, I'm afraid it'll be too late to save young Master Chun. But young Gongming wanted to say something else, but San Yang stopped him. Master, there's no need to say anything else. I'm afraid San Yang won't be able to make it in time if we delay any longer. All right. As soon as she finished speaking, San Yang disappeared from the courtyard. There wasn't even a trace of her shadow left. It was as if she had never appeared in the first place. If Yang Cheng was there to witness this scene, he would have turned pale with fright. Wasn't this the same supernatural power that the Hongmeng emissary, Ling Shuzi, used when they met at the seaside? The only difference was that Ling Shuzi's instantaneous movement was shorter, but this San Yang's instantaneous movement was completely gone. Yang Gongming wasn't too surprised. He only turned his head and looked at the gray sky in the south. He sighed leisurely. His gaze was blurry, as if he was reminiscing and regretting something. Chapter 559. On the highway from Zhonghai to the airport, a modified military jeep's engine was sprinting at a speed of nearly 200 kilometers per hour, like a dark green bolt of lightning. Almost all the cars gave way in fear. This was a military car. No one would dare to do anything if it crashed into someone else's car. Yang Qing looked straight ahead expressionlessly. Racing was no longer a technical skill to him. It was just an instinctive control of the machinery. The car was like his own limbs. He didn't need to think at all to avoid everything and move forward in the most perfect route. In fact, the task of chasing after Lu Min could be left to the Sea Eagles or to Qianwei's Red Thorn Society. They could intercept Lu Min much earlier than he did, and killing Lu Min, who had no one to rely on, was as easy as blowing dust. However, Yang Cheng still decided to do it himself. Lu Min wanted to touch his woman, and was also the culprit that put him in jail. Just based on these 2 points, Yang Cheng didn't mind killing him himself. Moreover, now that he knew that Lu Min's background wasn't simple, Yang Cheng didn't want the people around him to interfere. He would take care of everything himself. The speed of the Jeep made the owners of the few cars on the highway dumbfounded. After entering the last bend of the airport road, the Jeep did not slow down at all. It rushed forward at a speed of nearly 200 kilometers per hour. Some car owners thought that the driver of the Jeep was crazy. Wasn't he courting death? However, they didn't expect that the Jeep would enter at such a speed. The friction between the tires and the ground created sparks, and the angle was just right for the Jeep to pass the corner without overturning. One amazing driving skill. Everyone was shocked. As expected of a military driver, Huaxia's soldiers were really amazing. If Yang Qing knew what these guys were thinking, he would definitely be a little depressed. He didn't expect that they would make Yang Pujuan's army proud. The road ahead was less than 3 kilometers, and it was the departure station of Zhonghai International Airport. According to the report from the Sea Eagles, Lu Min should have just arrived at the airport. Yang Cheng's lips curled into a cold smile. This guy didn't even need to go through security. He could just die at the gate. As for whether the deaths would cause a riot, Yang Cheng wasn't stupid enough to let others discover that he was the one who did it. It couldn't be any easier to shatter an ordinary person's heart with true energy from a distance. At most, he would let Lu Min see him before he died. At the very least, he wouldn't have to turn into a ghost and have no one to take revenge on. But just when Yang Cheng felt that the matter was settled, an instinctive reaction suddenly flashed in his mind. Who is it? With Yang Cheng's reaction speed, he was still half a beat slower. The moment Yang Cheng sensed something powerful approaching, the speeding Jeep disappeared from the highway. In a commercial vehicle behind the Jeep, an elderly couple looked at each other. "Old man, was there a car in front of us just now?" The old lady asked uncertainly. The old man furrowed his white eyebrows. "I think I remember it too. Maybe it went in the front. The car was fast, and we might not have been paying attention." Although the old lady was a little puzzled, she didn't think too much of it. At that moment, Yang Cheng, who was sitting in the Jeep, had an uncertain expression on his face. In that instant, The Jeep had magically moved from the airport highway to a grassland under an overpass. This was the open area outside the airport, and about 1 kilometer away was the Zhonghai International Airport. It was the season of spring and summer, and this piece of land was full of wild grass that danced in the wind. The light green and dark green color made it look like the tide. The dark green camouflage Jeep seemed to have blended into the entire grassland. If it wasn't for the heat coming from the engine, it would have seemed like the Jeep had been parked there for a long time. Yang Chen's expression changed from alertness to shock to anger, and at this moment, he was at a loss of what to do. After a while, Yang Chen came back to his senses. He realized that the Jeep's engine had been destroyed by a force and had stopped working. The Jeep could no longer move. Looking at where he was, at the airport in the distance, Yang Chen was sure that the Jeep had moved a few kilometers in the blink of an eye from the highway to where he was. This speed reminded Yang Chen of the effect that a god could achieve through space folding after being unsealed. But the problem was, there were no fluctuations in space at all. How was this possible? What kind of power could do such a shocking thing without the help of the laws of space? Yang Chen asked himself. It wouldn't have been a problem for him to carry the Jeep and run all the way to this area before dropping it. But if he wanted to do what he did just now, it would be impossible to unseal it. Moreover, even if he unsealed it, he might not be able to move it so quickly. Young Master Chen. A gentle voice came from behind the Jeep. Yang Chen turned around and looked out of the window. He didn't sense anyone behind him. The old woman, San Yang, who was still wearing the same plain old clothes, was looking at Yang Chen with a smile. Her face was filled with love, as if she was looking at her own grandson. She liked him sincerely. Yang Chen recognized this woman because the person who always appeared with her left a deep impression on Yang Chen. This was the old woman beside Yang Gongming. But every time he saw this old woman, Yang Chen didn't pay much attention to her because she was too ordinary. But now that he thought about it, Yang Gongming was such an important person, yet he only brought her along. He should have known that she wasn't simple, but she shouldn't have been so overbearing. Who are you? Yang Chen couldn't be bothered with Lu Min anymore. He didn't want to waste his breath. He couldn't believe that the person who did that was the old woman he didn't pay much attention to. How could there be such a person beside Yang Gongming? Could it be someone from Hongming? Yang Cheng's back was drenched in cold sweat. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because the situation was too sudden. He couldn't control his emotions. To Yang Chen, who was used to having everything under control, this situation was very strange. My surname is Yin, and my name is San Yang. I'm a servant in the Yang family who takes care of Master's daily life. If young Master Chen doesn't mind, you can call me Granny Yin. Yin San Yang smiled. Yin San Yang? Yang Chen had never heard of this name before, but made sense. Among all the experts in the world, only Huaxia himself didn't know about them. Last time, it was Ling Shuzi who was on duty in Hongming. This time, it was Yin San Yang. What the hell? He had been the Dugu Qiubai overseas for many years, but this time, there were two people that he couldn't see through in a year. Why did you stop me? Did Yang Gongming ask you to come? Yang Chen frowned. He realized that his plan to kill Lu Min was going to be ruined. Yin San Yang didn't admit nor deny it. She said, young Master Chen should call Master Grandpa. Of course, I understand if you can't do it now. As for why I stopped you, I'm sure young Master Chen knows very well. There's no need to ask. After getting out of the car, Yang Chen stood in front of Yin San Yang and scratched his head. You're quite well informed. I've just returned to the country, and you're already here in Zhonghai to stop me. That old man is here too? Yin San Yang shook her head and smiled. Master just received a call from Miss Jiu. That's why I rushed over. Master is still in Beijing. What? It had to be said that ever since he took over the position of God from the previous Pluto, Yang Chen had never been frightened. At most, he was just nervous. But now, Yin San Yang's words had given him quite a fright. The distance between Beijing and Zhonghai, one north and one south, was more than 1,000 kilometers. Even if Yang Jiu made the call at the time of the incident, Yin San Yang wouldn't have been able to make it in time, even if she took a plane from the Yang family's mansion. In other words, Yin San Yang couldn't have used a vehicle to rush over. A terrifying thought popped up in Yang Chen's mind. Could it be that the kind old lady in front of him used the same method of moving the jeep? Did she travel through space alone from Beijing to Zhonghai in less than an hour, or even less than 10 minutes? Yang Cheng was confident that if he was unsealed, he could travel 1,000 kilometers in an hour using the law of space. Any faster, and even if the law of space allowed it, his body wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, Yang Cheng remembered that Ling Su Zi from Hongmeng had also used a method of traveling through space that he couldn't understand. Could this woman really be related to Hongmeng? What was her background? Chapter 560. Yin Sanyang seemed to understand Yang Cheng's shock. She smiled. Young Master Chun, listen to this old woman's advice. I believe you've met the Hongmeng envoy. If you insist on making a move against Lu Min, you'll only be inviting trouble upon yourself. Yang Chen knew that the old woman in front of him wasn't just some random persuader. Solemnly, he said, I know that Lu has a powerful grandfather as his backing, but does the Li clan have the authority to order people from Hongmeng around? Sanyang shook her head and sighed. No one can order around Hongmeng, not even the Li family. But young Master Chun, please think about it. The four great clans each have their own roles to ensure the stability of Huaxia's politics and military. Under such a balance, no one would accept that a direct descendant of a Li family would be mercilessly killed just because he touched an ordinary businesswoman's daughter. Even if the Lu family was in the wrong, they wouldn't go so far as to sentence him to death. If the Li clan could accept the fact that the Li clan didn't even give them face and killed them just like that, then the Li clan would lose all their prestige. If Lord Li Mo's hen couldn't even protect his own grandson, then how could the Li family be one of the four great clans? In the eyes of many in Yanjing, it's no secret that young Master Chun is the eldest grandson of the Yang family. So even if you don't think so, in their eyes, the Yang family is the one who started the war against the Li family. Yang Cheng was silent. He knew that Yin Sanyang was right. Yang Gongming had met him twice in private, and Yang Pejuan had met him many times. Yang Jiu and Yuan Hui were already friends, and Guoshuahua was already living with him. Although he had no other relatives other than Guoshuahua, the outside world had long regarded him as a member of the Yang family. He had no choice but to admit it. Sanyang continued. The Li family has always kept a low profile. First, they're small in number, only slightly better than the Yang family. Second, the Li family is in charge of intelligence and special forces, so they have to keep a low profile. But that didn't mean that the Li family was a pushover. If the patriarch of the Li family, Vice Premier Li Mo's hen, were to spread a large amount of negative information, it would only take a blink of an eye to cause a huge political upheaval. At that time, even if the Yang family is not afraid of the Li family, the Hongmeng envoy on duty will not sit idly by. Young Master Chun, perhaps you don't know this yourself, but you hold the deity position of that group of people and have comprehended the power to use the law of space. This is already something that Xia Hongmeng dislikes. If young Master Chun hadn't cultivated the endless resolve restoration scripture at the same time, he would have been in big trouble based on his previous actions. Yang Cheng felt a chill in his heart. He frowned and said, How do you know what cultivation technique I cultivate? Also, why would Hongmeng feel repulsed by a sovereign's divine throne? Yin Sanyang was a little surprised, but she soon felt relieved. She said, This endless resolve restoration scripture is the supreme art of Shu Mountain. It's not difficult to recognize. As for why you feel repulsed by it, it must be because the previous Hades and the other sovereigns didn't tell you about it. I took over the divine throne in a hurry. Other than some simple explanations and rules, I don't know much about the past of the gods. Could it be that there's a conflict between Xia's Hongmeng and the gods of the West? Yang Cheng guessed. Yin Sanyang's squinted eyes suddenly revealed a hint of arrogance. She shook her head and smiled. Conflict? That's impossible. Young Master Chun, it's not that I'm talking nonsense. In the eyes of the people of Hongmeng, the so-called gods are just a group of mutants. They can't even be considered as humans. They aren't even on the same level. How could there be a conflict? What? Yang Cheng's eyes widened. This was the first time he heard someone say that the high and mighty gods were not even considered as humans. Yin Sanyong hurriedly waved her hand. This is related to some ancient history that few people know about. I only found out about it from my master. Of course, even though young Master Chun is one of the so-called sovereigns, he's still a real human. He's not a mutant. What I'm talking about are the remaining 11 sovereigns who have lived since ancient times. The people of the world are foolish enough to call them gods. It's a joke. Looking at Sanyang's expression that didn't look like she was joking, Yangchen suddenly realized that there seemed to be a shocking secret that he had been keeping hidden. At that moment, Yangcheng's phone vibrated. Yangcheng's thoughts were interrupted. He picked up the phone and saw that it was a call from Molin. He glanced at Sanyang and saw that the old woman had no objections. Only then did Yang Chung pick up the phone. Subconsciously, Yang Chung had already determined that he no longer had the chance to kill Lu Min. Even if he unsealed himself, he might not be a match for Yin Sanyang. Just like Ling Shuzi, when his cultivation reached a certain level, he could sense that he was no match for them. Molin, what's the matter? Yang Chung asked calmly. Molin's tone was complicated. Your Majesty Pluto, it's very strange. That Lu Min is dead. Yang Chung was shocked. Dead? Wasn't he chatting with Yin Sanyang? How'd he die while he wasn't paying attention? Yin Sanyang, who was standing not far away, could clearly hear it as well. Her aged eyes flashed with a rare hint of fierceness. We don't know what exactly happened. After all, it wasn't a close-up surveillance. We only know that Lu Min was injected with an acute toxin not long after he entered the airport. He spat out black blood and lost his chance to be resuscitated. If I'm not wrong, that toxin reaction should be from the Lebanese spider used by Israel's Mossad. The culprit is obviously trying to frame you, Your Majesty. Molin said angrily. Almost all the secret service organizations in the world knew that there were only two forces in the world that could mobilize Israel's Mossad. One was Israel itself. The other was Yang Chung. Yang Cheng's right-hand man, Make Don, was also a high-ranking leader of Mossad. Yang Cheng hung up the phone with a gloomy expression. He couldn't guess who was the culprit, but there was no doubt that the culprit's intention was not simple. Yin Sanyang pondered for a moment before saying, This is fate. We thought we could stop this disaster, but we miscalculated and gave the culprit an opportunity. Young Master Chun, now you should believe that there are turbulent undercurrents under the surface of this seemingly calm sea. Yang Chung clenched his fists tightly. He had foolishly become the scapegoat for someone else's murder. How could he not be angry? Even if someone with a discerning eye could tell that someone was deliberately stirring up trouble to incite a conflict between the Yang family and the Li family, his murderous intent to kill Lu Min had already happened. Furthermore, he had the ability to assassinate Lu Min, so there was no way he could explain himself. However, Yang Chun wasn't a brat who hadn't seen the world before. Very quickly, his strong mental fortitude allowed him to calm down. He knew that since this had happened, the enemy was in the dark while he was out in the open. Thus, putting Lu Min's matter aside, Yang Chun raised his head and asked humbly, Granny Yin, I wonder if you could tell me about the ancient history you mentioned, if I'm lucky enough to understand it. Yin Sanyang's eyes brightened. She secretly praised Yang Cheng's temperament. When she heard Yang Cheng calling her Granny Yin, she was even happier. She smiled kindly and said, If young Master Chen wants to hear about it, I'm willing to tell you. This is something that you should know. It's just that those mutants didn't tell you about it because of their inferiority complex. Yang Cheng thought to himself, Look at how happy you are. Isn't it just calling you Granny? You deserve such a title at your age. Moreover, you're still serving Yang Gongming at such an old age. You might have some kind of relationship with him. If it wasn't for the fact that I wanted to squeeze all the bullsh asterisk T history out of you, I wouldn't even bother talking to you. Lu Min was already dead. What's the point of me staying in this godforsaken place? I'm so unlucky this morning. I don't know how high this old woman's cultivation base is. She scared me so much. But no matter what, she should have broken through the Xiantian full cycle like Ling Shuzi. I don't know when I can reach that level. I can travel through space without using my divine power. What a mysterious realm this was. If Yin Sanyang knew that Yang Cheng's mind was filled with all sorts of thoughts, she would have been petrified. However, she was still very satisfied with this young man. You see, as long as you talk nicely, even the most stubborn child will listen to you. After a moment of silence, Yin Sanyang began to narrate, Young Master Chun, you should know where the gods of the West originated from, right? Yangqing thought for a moment and said, if I'm talking about the origin, it should be Mount Olympus in Greece. Although most of the myths and legends that people know of have been tampered with, at least the names of places and people's lives are not wrong. Yin Sanyang nodded and said, Young Master Chun, do you know where the real Mount Olympus is? Chapter 561. The Real Mount Olympus. Yang Cheng was taken aback. What did she mean? Could it be that Mount Olympus was real or fake? However, Yang Cheng knew that Yin Sanyang must have her reasons for asking this question. Thus, Yang Cheng's mind began to search for any other mountain with the same name other than Mount Olympus in Greece. Yang Cheng had a map of the world in his mind, so he knew all the mountains in the world. However, he couldn't find a second Mount Olympus. He asked, Granny Yin, are you talking about a small mountain somewhere? How would I know? Yin Sanyang smiled playfully. She raised a finger and pointed to the sky. Yang Chen raised his head and looked at the gray sky. He couldn't see the sun. Sky? What do you mean? But the next moment, Yang Chen's mind jolted and he blurted out, Are you talking about Mount Olympus on Mars? That's right. Yin Sanyang nodded and smiled. Yang Chen opened his mouth and stood there dumbly. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Anyone who was familiar with astronomy would know that there was another mountain with the same name in the solar system other than Mount Olympus on Earth. Mount Olympus on Mars was the largest volcano in the solar system to date. It looked like a giant shield, its base area larger than the United Kingdom on Earth, and its height was 3 times that of Mount Everest. Granny Yin, don't tell me that the gods of Mount Olympus actually came from Mount Olympus on Mars. Yang Cheng shook his head and sighed. If that's the case, wouldn't they be aliens? Aliens? Yin Sanyang nodded. That's a good term, but the cultivators of Huaxia are used to calling them mutants. Yang Cheng looked at Yin Sanyang's calm expression and was speechless. After a long while, he said with difficulty, Are they really from Mars? The gods are Martians? Yang Cheng felt like he had entered a sci-fi movie. Why was everything so mysterious? But thinking about it, the things that had happened to him were even more mysterious than a sci-fi movie. So why would he care if the gods were Martians? Yin Sanyang saw the strange expression on Yang Cheng's face and knew that it was difficult for Yang Cheng to accept it. She sighed and shook her head. Then, she slowly told him about the ancient history that she had learned from her master. As early as tens of thousands of years ago, the most primitive human beings on Earth were still in a period where their spiritual wisdom had yet to develop. They were the so-called primitive people. On the other hand, in Huaxia's domain, there were some people who might have encountered some special opportunities and gained intelligence early on. Moreover, in a land that was full of danger, they comprehended the natural laws of the world and created a cultivation path that allowed them to become more and more powerful. Perhaps it was due to the people of different places, or perhaps it was due to luck. Just like that, a small group of humans began to write the history of civilization in the land of Huaxia. To put it simply, these people were the legendary immortals and gods in the civilization of Huaxia. There were many versions of the story, and the characters were different. But in the end, they were the same group of people. The earliest ancestors of Huaxia followed the heavenly Tao and focused on cultivation. They did not interfere with the development of other primitive societies. To them, there must be a special reason for the arrangement of the heavens. As long as they worked hard to find the root of the Tao, they would naturally understand the meaning of their existence one day. After a long period of time, after thousands of years, this group of people finally saw a strange change in the heavens and earth. At that time, the atmosphere of Earth suddenly fell like a meteor shower. Countless colorful light spots fell from the sky. These light spots were scattered all over the world. Most of them fell on the Eurasian plate, which had the most pleasant climate. The ancestors of Huaxia did not know what these light spots were. It was only after some light spots were found in the land of Huaxia that the ancestors realized that these light spots were living beings who wore strange clothes and looked similar to the humans on Earth. These people were extremely arrogant and seemed to look down on the primitive humans on Earth. When the primitive humans saw these people descending from the sky, they immediately worshipped them as gods. In fact, they did not know what gods were. They only instinctively feared the heavens, so they also feared the people who descended from the sky. However, this group of extraterrestrial visitors was extremely disgusted with the primitive humans on Earth. After discovering that the primitive humans had extremely low intelligence, they seemed to feel that they were of no use to them. So, they began to wantonly slaughter everywhere. They would rather keep animals alive than to keep primitive humans alive. After all, the reproduction ability of animals was stronger than that of humans. In their eyes, it was more worthwhile to keep animals as pets, while humans were inferior races that wasted food. Seeing this group of extraterrestrial visitors in the land of Huaxia slaughtering their own people, the ancestors of Huaxia who had retreated from the world were finally enraged. They had cultivated for more than 1,000 years and were extraordinary figures who had mastered the power of heaven and earth. A group of accomplished cultivators. Once they attacked, they slaughtered the originally arrogant alien races. In the end, they killed so many of them that they trembled with fear. Some died, some fled, and all of them rolled out of the land of Huaxia. The ancestors of Huaxia also discovered that this group of alien races had some tricks up their sleeves. They could actually manipulate parallel spaces. Moreover, after their physical bodies were destroyed, they could use their divine senses to transfer to a kind of magical space orbit. If they were not mistaken, this should be a special ability that allowed them to gather their strength and be reborn again. However, compared to this group of ancestors of Huaxia, the abilities of these alien races were child's play. After all, the ancestors of Huaxia had comprehended the origin of Tao, while these alien races could only use the form of power between heaven and earth. There was a huge difference in power between them. After discovering the cruel and evil acts of these alien races against the humans on Earth, the ancestors of Huaxia believed that this was the intention of heaven to give them early spiritual wisdom, and that they should do their duty to protect the creatures on Earth. As a result, the cultivators of Huaxia scattered all over the world and killed all the extraterrestrial visitors with the momentum of heavenly thunder. In the end, the most powerful leaders of this group of alien visitors compromised in fear. They led the remaining members of their race and begged the ancestors of Huaxia to spare their lives. According to them, their own planet was actually the red planet that was close to Earth. However, it had been hit by a destructive celestial body and could no longer survive on it. Therefore, they had no choice but to use their own space transmission ability to come to Earth and migrate. In fact, these people who arrived on Earth were already the most powerful group of people on Mars. Their ability to manipulate space was the most powerful, which was why they had the opportunity to travel all the way to Earth. Many of them could not hold on midway and were directly destroyed by the radiation in the universe. Knowing that this group of people were also pitiful victims whose homes had been destroyed, the ancestors of Huaxia felt that it was not right to kill them all. After all, that was too cruel and against the harmony of heaven. Therefore, the ancestors of Huaxia warned this group of alien mutants not to harm humans anymore. They were not allowed to set foot on the land of Huaxia, or their race would be destroyed. Seeing that this group of mutants had a higher level of civilization, they left them in other parts of the world and asked them to help primitive humans around the world. Although they could not be considered as protectors, they were still to promote the evolution of civilization at critical times. After the group of mutants agreed in fear, they obediently found a mountain in Europe and named it after the mountain in their hometown, Mount Olympus. Their remaining 12 strongest mutant leaders were the characters from the beginning of Western mythology. As these mutants began to help humans reproduce, human intelligence gradually increased and they began to worship them. Gradually, the term God came into being. Naturally, this was limited to those outside of Huaxia. Within the territory of Huaxia, those ancestors were the legendary celestial beings. At first, this group of mutants felt that it was a gift from the heavens to have a place to live. After all, as long as they did not invade the territory of Huaxia, the terrifying cultivators would not do anything to them. However, gradually, this group of mutants discovered that on this planet, they did not know if there was a subtle environmental difference, but the success rate of their reproduction was shockingly low. After a few decades, only a few offspring were born. Slowly, the mutants continued to think of ways to give birth, but they could not give birth to more children. Moreover, most of them could not reproduce anymore. They finally realized that their race was on the verge of extinction. It was impossible to return to Mars. Mars was uninhabitable. If they wanted to change to another planet, the nearest habitable planet from Earth was too far away. Fortunately, they discovered that, in addition to manipulating parallel space, they had another special talent, reincarnation, which could be used on humans on Earth. This discovery made them happy and worried at the same time. They were happy because among them, the stronger ones, especially those who were already ranked as gods, could use their extremely powerful mental strength, also known as divine sense, to continuously awaken from ordinary humans through reincarnation. The worry was that this reincarnation was not infinite. Among them, some of the weaker ones might not have enough mental strength to reincarnate after 2 or 3 times of reincarnation. What worried them even more was that this method of reincarnation was equivalent to killing ordinary humans. This was because every time they reincarnated, when the gods awakened, the human's consciousness would be replaced. In other words, the original human would no longer exist, leaving behind only a shell. In the end, the gods of Mount Olympus chose to come to the territory of Huaxia and begged the cultivators of Huaxia to allow them to reincarnate without shame. They also promised that when they awakened, they would work harder to promote the development of human civilization on Earth. The ancestors of Huaxia saw that the primitive human civilization had made great progress in the past few decades and knew that what they said was true. After some consideration, they felt that the advantages outweighed the disadvantages. For most primitive people, these mutants were of great value. Therefore, the ancestors of Huaxia allowed this group of mutants to reincarnate on the continent outside of Huaxia's territory. However, at the same time, in order to restrict this group of people from manipulating parallel space, the ancestors of Huaxia had to abide by the Treaty of the Gods. After all, if this group of mutants reincarnated in human society and used the power of the laws of space to kill some of their opponents, it would really go against the balance of the world and would cause panic among humans on Earth. Therefore, from then on, when the gods fought with non-god humans, they were not allowed to unseal, which was enforced by the gods. A small number of gods who broke the treaty were killed by the ancestors of Huaxia. After that, no one dared to break this rule. With the long passage of time and the vicissitudes of life, mankind gradually gained enough wisdom under the leadership of many astounding geniuses and entered the history of human civilization that flourished. Of course, in order to commemorate the lost civilization on Mars, the mutants also left many traces in history. For example, the pyramids that were similar to their houses on Mars, and the original name of Mount Olympus on Mars. This also caused many relics in the world to seem like they were not built by ancient humans. And these mutants gradually decreased generation after generation. After reincarnation, only the 12 gods with absolute power were left to this day. The legend of the gods gradually became a legend. As for the ancestors of Huaxia who had been suppressing them, they had disappeared in the long river of history like a legend. However, the organization Hongmeng had been passed down since ancient times. Some cultivators who had reached the Khanate full circle would join the organization after they had transcended the mortal world and lived in seclusion. However, in order to continue the responsibility of protecting their homeland, there would be a Hongmeng ambassador every 5 years to patrol the land of China. Firstly, it was to prevent Huaxia from being destroyed. Secondly, as long as the 12 gods were alive, they needed to keep them in check. This was to prevent the remaining 12 people from thinking that no one in the world could restrain them and have any ulterior motives. Listening to Yin Sanyang's intermittent narration of this dusty history, Yang Cheng's heart went from shock to disbelief. Then it gradually became clear, and he understood. Finally, he had a rough idea of what was going on and could almost accept it. No wonder the previous Pluto and the other gods never mentioned this part of history. They were the most powerful people who came to Earth, but it could also be said that they were the most useless people in the past tens of thousands of years. This was simply the history of the gods' humiliation. They could only watch as their people declined generation by generation, but they could do nothing about it. Moreover, they were completely powerless to resist Hongmeng. They could only hide outside of Hua Xia's territory. They had to avoid Hua Xia no matter what they did, and they did not dare to simply fight. Yang Chen more or less understood why these guys were living such ridiculous lives. Kristen was considered to be a singer. Apollo and Diana were directly involved in making up stories, and Ares was like a madman looking for people to pick a fight with, looking for trouble for no reason at all. Anyone who had lived for tens of thousands of years would have no desire to continue living as they watched their own kind gradually dwindle until there were only a few old farts left. They had enjoyed everything they could and were tired of everything else. That was the feeling of living a life worse than death. For example, Apollo and his sister seemed to be carefree all day, but how could Yang Cheng not see that they had no other thoughts in their hearts? That was why they had such a bad taste to provoke criticism from others. The previous Pluto formed Zero and killed countless people. However, killing people was probably not his main goal. He only wanted to train a successor among the killers so that he could be free. Although the successor could no longer be a real Martian, at least he managed to gather the 12 spots of the prime gods. It could be considered a final explanation to the other 11 people who continued the history of this race. However, if it wasn't for the help of Godstone, Yangchen wouldn't have had the opportunity to understand the manipulation of parallel space and the reincarnation technique. Speaking of which, why didn't Yin Sanyang mention anything about Godstone? Yangchen thought about it in confusion. He looked at Yin Sanyang, who was immersed in her memories, and said, "Granny Yin, I can accept the ancient history that you mentioned. However, I still have a question. Since the remaining 12 prime gods are already numb to reincarnation, why are they still fighting for Godstone? I have a rough understanding of the use of Godstone. According to Aphrodite and Apollo, Athena, Ares, and the rest had fought for Godstone before. Could it be that Godstone can resurrect their people?" Yin Sanyang seemed to have expected this question from Yang Cheng. She said, "It's hard for me to answer this question. What I know is what I heard from Master. At the end of the day, I'm not from Hongmeng. Godstone is a very special item in this world. The person who first discovered it is no longer aware of it. If it's that important, Hongmeng wouldn't have let it fall into the hands of the mutants. Unless Hongmeng doesn't know the true use of Godstone, or Hongmeng doesn't think that it's a threat." "You're not from Hongmeng?" Yang Cheng was puzzled. "Granny Yin, didn't you say that I would have to join Hongmeng after I reach the Khanate full cycle? With your cultivation, you should have already taken that step." Yin Sanyang smiled bitterly. "Young Master Chun, there's a reason for this. It's not convenient for me to talk about it now. I've said most of what I need to say." After saying so much, Sanyang only wanted young Master Chen to know that apart from Huaxia, no one would dare to provoke the power of a master deity. However, within Huaxia's territory, it's best not to use it if possible. If not for the fact that the Hongmeng emissary isn't someone who would easily make a move, it's only a matter of time before we attract trouble. Yang Cheng naturally understood the crux of the matter and believed that Sanyang was speaking the truth. As of now, he was definitely not Sanyang's match. According to Sanyang, after reaching the Khanate full cycle, even if a master deity used the reincarnation technique, he would still be destroyed by someone of that level. If he really attracted Hua Xia's attention, wouldn't his life be in danger? Although he wasn't afraid of death, he was still young and had so many women. How could he bear to die so easily? But after living for more than 20 years, when had he ever felt so pressured? He wanted to kill, but he was afraid of provoking others. It was truly suffocating. Yang Cheng was irritated. He wanted to ask San Yang if there was any limit to how far Hong Meng could go, so that he could do something within their tolerance. However, he suddenly froze. Why did he have to avoid them? At the end of the day, Hong Meng was still a human, and so was he. Didn't they just surpass the Khanate full cycle? Why couldn't he surpass it? Not to mention surpassing the Khanate full cycle. If the Hong Meng people bullied him with their numbers, he would just be stronger than all of them. He didn't believe that the people of Hong Meng were the highest level. Since young, Yang Cheng, have lived in a world where the strong preyed on the weak. When have I, Yang Cheng, ever been afraid of anyone? Why am I cowering and thinking of hiding this time? When he thought of this, Yang Cheng's eyes lit up. He looked at San Yang's skinny and aged body with a sneaky glint in his eyes. He chuckled. Grandma Yin, I have something I'd like to ask. Chapter 562. Yin San Yang suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. Yang Cheng was acting like an honest man just a moment ago. Why was he suddenly acting like a black-hearted peddler trying to deceive her? If young Master Chun has any questions, I'll tell you everything I know. Yin San Yang was unperturbed. At her age, there were very few things she couldn't see through. Yang Cheng pondered for a moment before asking. Granny Yan's cultivation must have crossed the threshold of Xiantian full cycle and reached a whole new level. What I want to ask is about that threshold. How do we cross it? Yin San Yang was about to say something, but Yang Chun quickly waved his hand to stop her, indicating that he wasn't done yet. I know. I'm an experienced person after all. I know that Granny Yin will surely say that when one's cultivation has reached a realm like ours, wanting to cross that threshold isn't something that can be done with a fixed method, right? Yin San Yang nodded in satisfaction and smiled. That's right. That's what I wanted to say. If you understand it, then you understand it. If you don't, then there's no point in talking about it. What the hell? This again. Back then, the drunkard Song Tianxing had said this and almost killed him to understand the 9th level, rebirth. Now, Yin San Yang was saying the same thing. Do you experts only know how to say one thing? While Yang Cheng was cursing in his heart, he smiled and said, I don't expect Granny Yin to teach me anything. But I was thinking that since it's a rare opportunity to ask for guidance, why don't you tell me about your enlightenment and cultivation? Even if everyone's enlightenment is different, it might be of some help to me. Yin San Yang was speechless. She didn't expect Yang Cheng to want to listen to these things. She knew that enlightenment was illusory and it wouldn't be of much use to him even if he told her about it. After all, it was a mysterious thing that couldn't even be described with words. What was the point of talking about enlightenment? But looking at the hopeful look on Yang Cheng's face, Yin San Yang began to ponder. She naturally knew that Yang Cheng clearly knew that the path of enlightenment could not be forced. Yet, he still asked her this question because he wanted to increase his strength so that he would not be afraid of Hong Meng. But how could she not hope that Yang Cheng would have the ability to protect himself? Especially when she found out that the Liu family's boy was assassinated by someone, she felt that even if Yang Cheng didn't get involved in this mess, there would still be people looking for trouble with him. If Yang Cheng could really take that step, even if he attracted Hong Meng's people at a critical moment, Hong Meng wouldn't really do anything to him. But how can I help him? Yang Chun saw that Yin San Yang was deep in thought. He didn't say anything. He stood there quietly, waiting for her answer. Just like that, the two of them stood on the empty grassland. A cool breeze blew through the grass, bringing with it a trace of coolness. At the same time, they could hear the roar of the airport in the distance. After a long time, Yin San Yang suddenly raised her head. After a moment of hesitation, she raised her right hand and pointed her index finger in the direction of Yang Cheng, drawing an arc in the air. Yang Cheng was stunned. To his surprise, Yin San Yang had drawn a circle around him with an exquisite technique. He didn't know what form of energy she was using. This circle was formed by flattening the surrounding grass. Yang Cheng stood in the circle, looking left and right. But Yin San Yang wasn't done yet. She drew another line with her finger. Not far away from Yang Chun, another circle with the exact same grass was drawn out. Yin San Yang finished her drawing and frowned. Young Master Chun, this is all I can do. Huh? Yang Cheng's mouth twitched. Mother asterisk her, old Granny Sanyang. Are you trying to trick me? Do you think you're some old man with the surname Deng? You drew one more circle than him, one around me and one not, and you're telling me that it's done? But your method of drawing circles was superb. I didn't even feel any inner chi or ripples in the air, yet you were able to complete it without anyone noticing. Yin San Yang seemed to know that Yang Cheng didn't understand. She shook her head and sighed bitterly. To be honest, these two circles are the clearest way I can think of to convey my understanding. But I can't say it. I really don't know how to describe it. Young Master Chun, I can't guarantee that these two circles will be of use to you. If you can't see anything special about them, then just think of it as a moment of confusion. Sigh. Yang Cheng was on the verge of tears. Please don't sigh. Why does it make me feel even more hopeless? Yin Sanyang looked at Yang Cheng's dejected expression and felt embarrassed to stay here any longer. She said, Young Master Chun, if you're free, come back to Beijing and visit Master. Master misses you very much. No matter how many estrangements and conflicts there are, they can't resist the burning connection of blood. I hope young Master Chun can return to your roots soon. I'll take my leave now. Yin Sanyang's figure disappeared into thin air without waiting for Yang Cheng to say anything. Yang Cheng's face was full of bitterness. Although he had experienced the huge leap from the 8th to the 9th level of the Endless Resolve Restoration Scripture, Yang Cheng knew that there would be a qualitative leap at this level. Every level of enlightenment would be a world of difference. But seeing how Yin Sanyang could come and go as she pleased without him feeling anything, it would be bullshit to say that it didn't affect Yang Cheng at all. Yang Cheng didn't think too much about it. He lowered his head and looked at the 1-meter-wide circle around him. He then looked at another circle a few meters away that was almost identical. He frowned. 2 circles? What does that mean? In a Lin family's bungalow, the atmosphere in Guo Xiuhua's room on the 2nd floor was stifling. Guo Xiuhua, who had already woken up, sat on the bed. Her eyes were red and lifeless, and her face was full of fatigue. Anshin, who looked worried and anxious, stood beside Guo Xiuhua's bed. She didn't say a word, just like a statue. At this moment, Mother Wang entered the room with a glass of water. She walked to Guo Xiuhua's bedside and handed the glass to her. She said with concern, Xiuhua, drink some warm water. It will help you calm down. I believe young master will be fine. Although Mother Wang and Guo Xiuhua were slightly apart in age, they were like sisters after spending so much time together. They even called each other by their names in private. When Anshin sent Guo Xiuhua home with Wang Jie and Zhao Tang's help, Mother Wang was quite frightened. After listening to Anshin's brief explanation, Mother Wang only knew that such a big thing had happened in the family. But she had been through many dangers before, so she wasn't scared. Guo Xiuhua reluctantly took the glass and smiled bitterly. Yulan, you know how important Yang Cheng is to me. I don't know how he is now. If something really happens to him, the consequences, I don't even dare to think about it. Mother Wang didn't know much about the fights between the higher-ups. She could only sigh and try her best to comfort Guo Xiuhua not to think too much about it. She would definitely be able to turn misfortune into blessing. At this moment, Guo Xiuhua's phone rang. Guo Xiuhua was shocked. She immediately stood up and took the phone. It was Yang Jiyu. Hello, Jiyu, how is Yang Cheng? Guo Xiuhua asked anxiously. Her usual gentle and elegant temperament was long gone. Yang Jiyu didn't beat around the bush. She said directly, Sister-in-law, things are more complicated than we thought. The good news is that Yang Cheng didn't arrive at the airport, so he didn't kill Lu Min, but the bad news is, Lu Min is still dead. What? Guo Xiuhua was stupefied. She didn't understand what was going on. Yang Jiyu explained, I just heard from our Yuan family's informant that Lu Min died from poisoning at the airport. It said that the poison was probably a special poison from a foreign spy organization. And I guess that the enemy was targeting Yang Cheng. Although Yang Cheng didn't arrive at the airport, many forces knew that Yang Cheng was most likely the one who ordered his men to kill Lu Min with that poison. How could this be? Guo Xiuhua was stunned. Although she was happy to hear that her son was fine, she felt her heart sink when she realized that Yang Cheng had been plotted against. Anshin saw Gua Shuehua's dazed expression. She suppressed her fear and clenched her teeth. She went forward and gently grabbed one of Gua Shuehua's hands. She tightened her grip and opened her beautiful eyes. She said seriously, "Auntie, you have to pull yourself together. Yang Cheng is so powerful. He'll definitely be fine." Although these words sounded hollow and weak, Gua Shuehua, who was feeling down, obviously needed this kind of encouragement. Gua Shuehua raised her head and looked at Anshin, who had a firm and unwavering expression. She finally reached out her other hand and patted the back of Anshin's hand. She smiled warmly and said, "Thank you, Anshin." Mother Wang saw this scene. She didn't say anything, but a trace of worry flashed through her eyes. Another outstanding girl. When would this young miss of hers be able to win the favor of her mother-in-law like these girls? Rumble. Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the gloomy sky. The sky had been gray since the beginning of the morning. Finally, after the deafening thunder, it started to rain heavily on the grassland far away from the airport. The pouring rain mixed with the flashes of lightning and thunder made this piece of land look like it was in the middle of a storm. A purplish-blue lightning flashed across the sky and cut through the rain clouds. The light shone on the grassland and the figure who was sitting lazily. Yang Cheng was sitting casually on the grassland. He let the rain fall on his body, wet his hair, soak his clothes, and let the raindrops drip from his head and face onto the grassland. He could have used his qi to prevent the rain from touching him, but Yang Cheng didn't do that, because he had forgotten. After Yin Sanyang left, Yang Cheng sat casually on the grassland. Since Lu Min was dead, he didn't have anything else to do for the time being. He sat down and thought about what the two circles meant. It had been a long time since he thought about cultivation. However, there were many things that didn't mean that he wouldn't learn after a long time. Instead, to Yang Cheng, it was natural for him to understand some things carefully. Soon, Yang Cheng entered a state where he forgot everything around him. He didn't know that there was thunder and lightning outside, nor did he know that his body was drenched. In Yang Cheng's eyes and mind, there was nothing else other than the two circles, within the circle, outside the circle, inside the circle, outside the circle. Yang Cheng kept murmuring as if he was sleep-talking. It seemed like he was doing it on purpose, but it also seemed like he was instinctively telling himself something. Time ticked by. Yang Chen's facial expression remained lifeless. He didn't even blink once. While Yang Cheng was immersed in his own world, Gua Shuehua and the others were anxious. It went from noon to the afternoon and night. The rain had stopped. Occasionally, the sound of raindrops could be heard from the eaves outside. It made the house even more quiet. Mother Wang made some simple dishes and brought them to the living room. However, Gua Shuehua and Anshin sat on the sofa and stared at the clock on the wall. They didn't have the appetite to eat. Mother Wang looked at the two of them who were lost in thought. She frowned and shook her head. When they found out that Yang Cheng didn't go to the airport, Yang Jiyu and her husband helped Gua Shuehua to search for Yang Cheng in Zhonghai. They tried their best to contact Yang Cheng, but they couldn't get through to Yang Cheng's phone at all. If they were right, his phone should be turned off or out of battery. As for the Jeep that Yang Cheng drove, the last report said that it appeared near the airport highway. However, they couldn't find where the car was parked even after a group of people secretly searched for it. In an instant, Yang Cheng disappeared into thin air. Who would have guessed that Yang Cheng was actually sitting in the middle of the grassland outside the airport? He had no intention of hiding from anyone. Who would have guessed that it wasn't that Yang Cheng didn't want to go home, but that he was suddenly immersed in some kind of thoughts and forgot about it? It wasn't until late at night that Gua Shuehua came back to her senses. She realized that Anshin was sleepily waiting for Yang Cheng by the side. She couldn't help but feel a sense of pity. Even though she knew that this child didn't have a proper relationship and that this house belonged to her daughter-in-law, Gua Shuehua couldn't bear to send Anshin home so late at night to sleep. Anshin, it's already midnight. You must be tired today. Go to bed early, Gua Shuehua advised with a bitter smile. Anshin shook her head. I'm worried. Silly girl, you're still advising Annie to have confidence in Yang Cheng. Are you lying to Auntie? Gua Shuehua sighed and went forward to hold Anshin's hand. Forget it. Go upstairs with Annie. Yang Cheng's room is empty. You can sleep in his room. Annie will sleep too. We all believe in Yang Cheng, okay? This time, An Xin couldn't refuse. Guo Shuihua actually wanted her to sleep in Yang Cheng's room as a mistress. If she still refused, she would be letting down the love that Guo Shuihua had for her. Although she couldn't fall asleep, she still nodded obediently. That night, Zhonghai was filled with the Yuan family's disciples and some of the Jiangnan military scouts searching for traces of Yang Cheng. Coincidentally, the heavy rain blocked most of their vision. Moreover, because their target was the jeep, this group of people didn't think of searching in the wilderness. Coincidentally, they missed Yang Cheng, who was right in front of them. When dawn came, Yang Cheng, who was sitting on the grass, finally came back to his senses. He was like a statue that had been petrified for a long time. He turned his head stiffly and looked around. Then he looked at his wet and cold body. Only then did he realize that it had rained and that half of his clothes had dried up after one night. After a few bitter laughs, Yang Cheng scratched his wet hair that was stuck with dew. At this moment, he definitely looked like a homeless person. After a night of meditation, he thought that he had reached the peak of the innate realm. His feet that were standing on the edge would be able to cross over that threshold. After all, he saw two circles and was actually able to sink deep into them. This meant that there was something inside. However, only now did Yang Cheng realize that the difference between having some comprehension and true enlightenment was like the difference of 1,000 miles. In the end, he still didn't break through that threshold. It was as if there was a glimmer of golden light shining through the crack of the door, but he just didn't have enough strength to open the door. This made Yang Cheng extremely uncomfortable. However, no matter how unwilling he was, it was useless. He could only lament that his opportunity hadn't come yet. Yang Cheng couldn't be bothered to stay any longer. He planned to get up and go home to take a hot bath and change his clothes first. Right at this moment, Yang Chen's peripheral vision caught sight of a slightly bulging piece of loose soil in the midst of the bushes. That was the nest of the black ants. It looked like an ordinary little mound, but in reality, there were countless small holes in it. The ants usually went in and out to move food. This nest had obviously been there all along. It was just that he didn't notice it when he came here previously. At this moment, because of the heavy rain, a large part of the nest had been washed away. The inside of the nest was also flooded. The ants had no home to enter and were circling around. It was unknown whether they were going to rebuild their home or wait for the weather to clear up and the ground to dry up before making any plans. This was originally a very ordinary scene, but in Yang Cheng's eyes, it was like a spring thunder that exploded in Yang Cheng's mind. Inside the circle, outside the circle, ants' ant nest. Yang Cheng murmured. His pair of eyes that were originally calm now sparkled with stars. Chapter 563. After a night of heavy rain, the lush greenery in the courtyard seemed exceptionally cold. Water droplets were dripping from the green leaves, and the intricate grass was filled with crystals. The main door of the bungalow was pushed open from the inside. Guo Shuihua, who was wearing a light brown sweater, walked out and looked in the direction of the big iron gate. She didn't sleep well last night, and her complexion was a little ugly with dark circles under her eyes. However, Guo Shuihua couldn't care less. Yang Cheng didn't come home for the whole night, and no one told her that he was found. Guo Shuihua couldn't feel at ease. Mother Wang walked out of the house and sighed tiredly. She said with concern, "Shuihua, I made some porridge. Go and have some. It's cold outside so early in the morning. It's not good to keep standing." "Yuan, where do you think Yang Cheng went? There are so many people looking for him in Zhonghai. Why can't they find him?" Guo Shuihua was frustrated and didn't have the appetite to eat the porridge. This was her flesh and blood that she had lost for more than 20 years and found again. If she wasn't mentally strong, she would have been bettered by now. Wang Ma had a bitter expression on her face. "Although I don't have a child, I know that it must be hard for you." But although the son-in-law didn't come back, no one said anything happened to the son-in-law. If the son-in-law came back and you collapsed, the son-in-law wouldn't feel good either. I also know that it's useless to wait like this, but I'm not just feeling bad. My heart is breaking. An indescribable sadness appeared on Guo Shihuahua's face. Mother Wang smiled wryly and helplessly. What a mess. Why do such troublesome things always happen in our family? However, it's fortunate that Jinxiu is staying in school these few days. If this happened when she came home, based on the relationship between Jinxiu and young master, she would probably jump up and down and the family wouldn't have any peace. Guo Shihuahua was stunned. She frowned and said, "By the way, I'm confused. Jinxiu didn't come back last night. Did she stay at school?" Mother Wang nodded and said with heartache, "You called me after you left. You said that you're going to do intensive revision or something in school these few days. The entire third year of high school is staying at school. I don't know what the school is doing. They're always doing intensive training. They're all studying, and they're even more tired than working." Guo Shihuahua forced a smile and said, "Of course, students who are going to take the college entrance examination will be more tired. But when they start working in the future, they might really miss these days. Actually, sometimes when I look at Jinxiu, I often think that if our Yang Cheng was also at home and went to school like other children, I would also be like other mothers, urging my child to go to school properly and finish his homework." Thinking about it carefully, those days must have been very meaningful, watching the children grow up day by day and understand more and more. But whether it's Yang Cheng or my youngest son, Yang Lai, one disappeared when he was young, and the other went to learn from his master. I couldn't take good care of them. Speaking of which, I'm really not a good mother. I want to use the rest of my time to make it up to them. At least I could see Lai often when he was young, but I couldn't take care of Yang Cheng at all. No wonder you treat Jinxiu like a daughter. It seems that you've never tasted what it's like to take care of a child, so you're using Jinxiu to make up for it," Mother Wang said jokingly. Guo Shihuahua smiled faintly, but the worry between her brows didn't dissipate. The two of them looked at the door for a while, but no one came back. They could only turn around and go back into the house. But just as they were about to close the door, someone knocked on the big iron door outside. When Guo Shihuahua and Mother Wang heard that, they immediately ran out. Indeed, there was a figure standing outside the door, knocking on the iron door from time to time, making bang-bang sounds. With one look, Guo Shihuahua's eyes turned red, and tears of joy instantly came out. The person who came back was Yang Cheng. Son-in-law. Mother Wang was also surprised. She quickly pulled Guo Shihuahua to the door and opened the iron door for Yang Cheng excitedly. When they got closer to take a closer look, Guo Shihuahua's tears fell uncontrollably because the current Yang Cheng was really too tragic. His short-sleeved shirt and shorts were full of grass and mud stains. Many parts of his clothes were wet and had not dried yet. His hair was like a bird's nest, and there were some mud stains on his face. His sneakers were also full of mud, and there were even some yellow mud spots on his calves, which should have been caused by the muddy water. It was such a homeless man's attire that made Yang Cheng, who wasn't considered a handsome guy, look like he had a mental illness. But he didn't feel anything at all, and he was smiling foolishly at the two elders. He was in an unusually good mood. "Mom, Mother Wang, I'm sorry, my phone ran out of battery, and then I ran into something and forgot the time. Please don't be angry at me for the sake of my embarrassment." Yang Cheng scratched his bird's nest hair and winked at them. Looking at her son, who was smiling without a care in the world, Guo Shihuahua pouted and hugged him. She cried for a while, then used her fist to hit Yang Cheng a few times, seemingly heavily, but actually lightly. She wiped her tears and said, "You little rascal, what could make you forget when you get home? You obviously don't care about anyone at home. Do you know that I'm going crazy with worry?" Yang Cheng allowed Guo Shihuahua to hit him with her fists. Every time she hit him, he would feel a surge of sweetness in his heart. His lips curled into a smile. The feeling of being missed by his family made him feel guilty, but he enjoyed it at the same time. After Guo Shihuahua cried for a while, her emotions calmed down, and she didn't feel too sad anymore. Her son had returned home safely, and that was more important than anything else. So she didn't ask Yang Cheng anything else, and quickly pulled Yang Cheng back to the house. When they were in the house, Guo Shihuahua looked at Yang Cheng's beggar's attire and frowned. "Which mountain did you go to, and you got lost? How did it become like this? Didn't you drive to the airport? Where did you go?" Yang Cheng didn't hide it and directly said, I was going to the airport, but something happened, so I went to a wasteland outside the airport and stayed there for a night. Wasteland? Guo Shuihua and Mother Wang were puzzled. Why did you go to such a place? Yang Cheng thought about it for a while and said, Actually, I don't know what I did. Someone talked to me about something, and I thought about something. After thinking about it, the night passed. In the end, the car broke down, and I had to run back slowly, treating it as my morning exercise. Guo Shuihua and Mother Wang didn't know what Yang Cheng was talking about, and from the looks of it, he didn't seem to be lying, but they couldn't understand what he was talking about. Young master, why did you run back? Even if you didn't bring any money, you could have taken a taxi. Mother Wang said with heartache. Hearing those words, Yang Cheng felt depressed and indignant. Mother Wang, you have no idea. Those taxi drivers thought that I was a beggar, and some even treated me as a lunatic, so they refused to let me in. Only then did the two of them realize that no one dared to drive Yang Cheng with his current attire. Even if they weren't afraid of dirtying the car, they were afraid of encountering a fugitive. In the end, Guo Shuihua, who was left speechless, did not ask about her son's whereabouts. To her, it was fine as long as Yang Cheng was fine. Thus, she nudged Yang Cheng and said, Let's not talk about anything else. Go back and take a shower. Change your clothes and come down for breakfast. You must be hungry since you haven't eaten for a long time. Looking at the steaming porridge and side dishes on the table, Yang Cheng swallowed his saliva and said, Why don't we eat first? No. How are you going to eat like this? Don't you see that the carpet is covered in mud? Guo Shuihua didn't soften just because of Yang Cheng's pitiful look. She wouldn't give in to him just because she felt guilty. Furthermore, looking at Yang Cheng, he didn't look like he would faint if he didn't eat. Yang Cheng scratched his head. It didn't matter to him, so he ran back upstairs. Suddenly, Guo Shuihua recalled something and said, Oh right, Yang Cheng, did you know that Lu Min was killed? Hearing this, Yang Cheng didn't even turn his head. He waved his hand and said, I know. Don't worry about it. They can think whatever they want. Guo Shuihua was surprised. Lu Min was someone who made Yang Cheng go crazy to kill. She thought that he would have some reaction when he heard that Lu Min was killed. After all, those people must be trying to frame Yang Cheng. However, she didn't expect that Yang Cheng didn't care at all. Watching Yang Cheng go back upstairs, Guo Shuihua thought for a while. She frowned and said to Mother Wang, Yulan, why do I feel that Yang Cheng is a little different from the others? Mother Wang was puzzled. What's different? Isn't young master always like this? Although he is sloppy, he is still trustworthy when it comes to important matters. Didn't I tell you before that after young master and Miss got married, many problems in our family were solved? It was all thanks to young master. Guo Shuihua shook her head and smiled. That's not what I meant. I don't know if I'm being paranoid. I just feel that this kid is a little different. I can't put my finger on it, but I'm sure it's not a bad thing. Mother Wang pursed her lips and smiled. Only a mother like you can feel it. Could it be that this is the so-called mother and son are connected? Knowing that Mother Wang was joking, Guo Shuihua rolled her eyes. Just when she was about to say something, she was stunned. Aya, look at my memory. I forgot to tell Yang Cheng that Anshin is sleeping in his room. Mother Wang was stunned. She had gone to bed earlier last night. She asked in surprise, Shuihua, you let Miss Anshin sleep in young master's room? Guo Shuihua was a little embarrassed. After all, Mother Wang was her daughter-in-law, Lin Ruoshi's family. She nodded. Yes, it was late last night. I couldn't bear to send Anshin out, so I let her sleep in our house. But it's not suitable for her to sleep in Ruoshi's or Jinxio's room, so I let her sleep in Yang Cheng's room. Mother Wang smiled bitterly. She didn't know what to say. It should be fine. Ruoshi is still in Europe. Anshin will go back after she sees Yang Cheng, Guo Shuihua added guiltily. But even she felt that it wasn't fair, not to mention that she was facing Mother Wang. In a way, she was Ruoshi's parent. Wang Ma sighed and said, It's not a matter of one night or several nights. Even if you and I don't say anything, Miss Anne's relationship with his son-in-law is obvious. Shuihua. First, it was Miss Qiangwei next door. Now it's Miss Anshin. I've watched Miss Anshin grow up, and I know her character well. Sometimes, even 10 bulls can't pull her back. If this goes on, what will you do as her mother-in-law? Guo Shuohua's heart was in a mess. She was happy that her son was back, but her son's lifestyle was a big problem. At this moment, the house phone rang. Mother Wang walked over and picked it up. "Who is it?" After a while, Mother Wang's expression became more complicated, and she said with some surprise, "Miss, you're home?" Chapter 564. Wang Ma's miss really stunned Guo Shuohua, who was standing at the side. Lin Ruoshi came home. Why now? Guo Shuohua never expected Lin Ruoshi to come home at this time. Wasn't she going to come back from Europe in a day or two? Her daughter-in-law always told her not to work too hard, but she didn't listen. Why did she come home early this time? Was she asking for it? No matter how experienced Guo Shuohua was, she hadn't been a mother-in-law for long. She didn't have much experience. Now that she met such a perfect son, she finally understood what even an upright official can't settle a family dispute meant. Okay. Take your time, Mississippi. I left breakfast for you. I'll go open the door now. Mother Wang replied and hung up the phone. Then, she let out a sigh of relief. Guo Shuohua quickly asked, Yulan, Ruoshi came home? Didn't she say that she'll only be home the day after tomorrow? Mother Wang looked at Guo Shuohua's anxious face and wanted to laugh, but she couldn't. Miss said that she'll be home in about 10 minutes. Because her work in Europe ended early, she changed her flight ticket and came back. She also asked me to prepare breakfast for her so that she can go to work after she gets home. She just got off the plane, and now she's going to work. Guo Shuohua was stunned. She thought of Lin Ruoshi's workaholic nature and shivered. She smiled bitterly and said, not to mention our Yang family. Even Ruoshi has more money than she can spend in a few lifetimes. I really don't know what my precious daughter-in-law is thinking. If she continues like this, when can I hold a grandchild? Let's put aside the matter of holding a grandson for now. I think you should think about how to explain Miss Anshin's problem when she comes back. You can't just drag Missin downstairs and drive her out of the door right now. It might not be too late, Mother Wang said awkwardly. Guo Shuohua averted her eyes and didn't dare to look at Mother Wang. She didn't know what to do and could only blame herself for being muddle-headed. At this moment, in Yang Cheng's room upstairs, the man and woman didn't know what the two elders were thinking. Anshin only fell asleep in the wee hours of the morning when she couldn't hold on any longer, so she was especially sleepy. When Yang Cheng entered the room, he was surprised to find that Anshin was lying on his bed. The woman was frowning in her sleep. It seemed that she was having a bad dream because she couldn't let go of her worries. Yang Chun immediately understood what was going on. Without bothering to take a shower in the bathroom, he walked to the bedside and squatted down. He quietly looked at an Xian's smooth face. Delicate, adorable, less gorgeous than usual, and more innocent. She was like a little girl who hadn't grown up yet, sleeping like a little girl. Yang Cheng smiled, and his eyes were full of gentleness. Although his relationship with his legal wife was always problematic, his relationship with his other beauties had been gradually warming up and deepening. He didn't know whether to be sarcastic or happy. Subconsciously, Yang Cheng stretched out his hand and pulled the bedsheet for Anshin. This woman had fallen asleep while waiting, and she was still wearing clothes. He was afraid that she would catch a cold. However, this slight movement was still noticed by Anshin. It seemed that there was something. As soon as Yang Cheng pulled the bedsheet up, Anshin's big watery eyes had already opened. With a bit of drowsiness and moist eyes, when she saw Yang Cheng, she thought it was an illusion. Anshin stretched out her soft white palm and wiped her eyes. Only then did she realize that it was the real Yang Cheng who was back. Regardless of how sloppy Yang Cheng looked, Anshin got up from the bed excitedly and threw herself into Yang Cheng's arms. Honey! With a cry, Anshin stretched out her arms and hugged Yang Cheng's neck tightly. Her whole body was like a water snake, wrapping around Yang Cheng's body. She couldn't wait to sink deep into his body and become one with him. Yang Cheng smelled the strong fragrance of the woman's sleeping body. Her warm and soft body and her sobbing made him not know what to do for a moment. In the end, Yang Cheng could only reach out and caress Anshin's back. He patted it and said, Silly girl, it's not like I've been missing for a few years. You're making me look like a heartless man. Anshin sobbed and said in a low voice, I'm worried that something will happen to you. What can happen to me? Yang Chung rolled his eyes. I don't know. I'm just worried. Anshin replied foolishly. Yang Chung sighed, picked up the woman who was hanging on his body like a koala bear, and put her back on the bed. He said, I'm going to take a bath. Otherwise, I'll dirty you too. Anshin, however, refused to let go. She grabbed Yang Cheng's hand and pouted, I don't care. Yang Cheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's not that you don't care I have to wash up like this. I don't want you to leave me. Anshin said eagerly. This woman was also scared, but this night was like a century of painful longing. After all, she was the cause of the matter, and she blamed herself, afraid that because of her, she would really cause an irreparable situation. It wasn't easy for Anshin, who had finally seen her man return safely, to not let go so easily. Yang Chung stretched out 2 fingers, pinched Anshin's nose, and said lecherously, since baby Anshin misses me so much, then let's bathe together. After saying that, he bent down and carried Anshin horizontally and strode towards the bathroom. Anshin's face flushed red, but she didn't object. Although she felt that a couple's bath was a little absurd, not to mention that there were elders downstairs in Yang Cheng's house. But at this moment, Anshin couldn't wait to roll onto the bed with Yang Cheng. So why would she care about taking a bath together? Amidst the frolicking, Yang Cheng's strange laughter came from the bathroom, and Anshin's coquettish shouts. The sound of water was mixed in, making it seem especially ambiguous. Although it was a couple's bath, the speed was extremely fast. Yang Cheng, who was in high spirits, was too lazy to spend any more time in the bathroom. After 5 or 6 minutes, he walked out of the bathroom with Anshin in his arms. Their hair was still wet, and they hadn't dried up much. Their bodies were even more naked. Anshin's arms were wrapped around Yang Cheng's neck, and her plump breasts were pressed against Yang Cheng's chest. The two kissed each other in a daze, and then fell onto the big bed. Originally, they were going downstairs for breakfast, but Yang Cheng had already forgotten about it. He would eat the charming beauty in front of him first. Soon, the whole house was filled with the color of spring on the side of the road outside the house. A white S-Series Mercedes-Benz slowly stopped. The driver quickly ran out of the car, walked to the back door, opened the door, and bowed his head in a gesture of invitation. Lin Ruashi, who was wearing a beige British-style spring top, a short skirt, and black stockings, got out of the car with a bag in her hand. She was dressed elegantly like the aristocratic ladies in British movies. Because of her extraordinary temperament, people didn't dare to look at her for fear of insulting her elegance. Lin Ruashi's black hair was casually scattered, hanging down to her waist. She wore a pair of big sunglasses, which covered a large part of her face, and people couldn't see her expression at the moment. The driver, who didn't dare to raise his head, was from the security department of Yulei. He was originally on duty at the company, but suddenly received a notice that the CEO would arrive at the airport in the morning and needed to pick her up. He couldn't help but change his job to a driver in a hurry. Go back to the company, Lin Ruashi said lightly, then pushed open the metal door that was already opened and slowly walked into the house. Yes, General Lin. The young driver nervously stood at attention and bowed, then ran back to the car and drove back to the company. When Lin Ruashi heard the car behind her drive away, she faintly sighed and took off the sunglasses on her face, revealing a cold and tired face. It was also to not let the employees in the company find out that she was tired, so she chose to wear sunglasses. She was supposed to return home the day after tomorrow, but for some reason, yesterday, Yang Chung suddenly said that something happened to Anshin and he was in a hurry to return to Zhonghai. After that, Lin Ruashi didn't have the mood to continue finishing her work in Paris. Lin Ruashi felt that Anshin's matter had nothing to do with her, and she didn't need to care about what that man wanted to do for Anshin. However, even though she clearly thought so, she couldn't control her thoughts and floated back to Zhonghai from Paris. Lin Ruashi even suspected that there was something wrong with her mind. Why was she always thinking about insignificant things? However, there was always a thought in her mind that urged her to return to Zhonghai as soon as possible. She wanted to see what this man was up to. What made him leave her alone in France and rush back to the country? What did I want to do for Anshin? What could have happened to Anshin? She didn't ask Yang Chung directly. As for why she didn't ask, Lin Ruoshi didn't know herself. It was as if she hated her stubbornness, so she couldn't open her mouth at all. But no matter what the reason was, Lin Ruoshi asked the company to change the plane ticket, then packed up and rushed back to China a day earlier. The way back was very lonely because they changed from 2 people to 1 person, but this didn't make Lin Ruoshi feel too uncomfortable. After all, she had long been used to facing many things alone. However, on the way back, she kept thinking about what happened in Zhonghai, which made Lin Ruoshi feel that something was wrong. Lin Ruoshi had seen that man's temper many times. Even if the sky fell, this guy often didn't care. Many people found it extremely difficult to face problems, but he didn't treat it as a problem at all. Since that was the case, how could something that made him rush back to China be a small matter? Thinking of this, Lin Ruoshi had an inexplicable worry. This worry gradually grew, becoming a heavy psychological burden and even a strong sense of guilt. Lin Ruoshi hated herself very much. She clearly had the other person in her heart, but why couldn't she say some things? Why did she always stubbornly insist on some personality that caused her and others to be scarred? If she could lower her attitude and ask Yang Chung what exactly happened, Yang Chung would definitely tell her. Otherwise, Yang Chung wouldn't have specially said that it was to help Anshin deal with some things. Therefore, during the 10 hours of flight back to China, Lin Ruoshi's questioning of herself made her both physically and mentally exhausted. At the same time, she also began to think about whether it was really time to give up some things. At the end of the day, she was just a woman. No matter how many flaws that man had, at least he could protect her. Moreover, the 2 of them were husband and wife. If she continued to hold on like this, could she really get rid of the knot in her heart? Would there really be a good outcome? Step by step, Lin Ruoshi was about to enter the house when the door opened. Guo Shuihua and Mother Wang came out to welcome her. They were both waiting by the window, so naturally, Lin Ruoshi saw them the moment she got out of the car. "Miss, you're really back." Mother Wang didn't look any different. She went up to take Lin Ruoshi's bag with a smile. Guo Shuihua also smiled and said warmly, "Look at you, child. How tired are you? Your lips are pale. You haven't slept for almost a day and night, right? My heart aches just looking at you. Come in quickly." Hearing Guo Shuihua's words, Lin Ruoshi blamed herself even more. Her mother-in-law was still quite concerned about her. The elders had always hoped that her relationship with Yang Chung could improve as soon as possible, but she always rejected this and that and refused to communicate properly. Was she too unfilial? "Mom, Just when Lin Ruoshi was about to say that she was fine and not to worry, suddenly, a woman's scream came from the balcony on the 2nd floor of the house. Hubby, no, this voice. Was it Anshin's voice? Lin Ruoshi suddenly raised her head, but when she raised her head, the color drained from her face. Her whole body was like a dried stone statue, and she couldn't move even half a step. Guo Shuihua and Mother Wang covered their mouths at the same time. They looked at each other in shock. At their age, even if they didn't raise their heads, they knew what was happening upstairs. Chapter 565. Yang Chung, who was engaged in a hand-to-hand battle upstairs, naturally wouldn't have thought that his family would go out and stand under the balcony. He also wouldn't have thought that Lin Ruoshi would suddenly come back early and coincidentally stand under the balcony. Just because he was having fun, Yang Chung carried Anshin's limp body and pushed her to the floor-to-ceiling window. In this way, Anshin, who was originally lying on the bed, stood there with her back facing Yang Chung. Her body was pressed against the tempered glass door. In front of her was a cold touch, and behind her was a man's hot breath and powerful impact. It made her suddenly become a lonely boat in the ocean, drifting and feeling the surging waves. Anshin suddenly couldn't control her voice and cried out for mercy. This kind of stimulation wasn't something that could be easily endured. How could Yang Chung stop when he heard her beg for mercy? Wave after wave, he sprinted from the back, making Anshin, this little vixen, cry and making the tempered glass door shake nonstop, afraid that it would collapse. The The man and woman's movements and cries from upstairs reached the ears of the three people downstairs. It was like a bolt out of the blue. Lin Ruashi's body froze for a while. Her eyes were fixed on the location of Yang Cheng's room. Gradually, her body began to tremble and her legs went soft. She couldn't help but take a step back before she could stand firm. Her heart that had just softened was like a jacket that was immediately attacked by a cold current. After freezing, it was ruthlessly smashed. Lin Ruashi was in a daze and forgot where she was. She only heard a shattering sound in her ears, like powder, like dust. So, he rushed back home to deal with Anshin's matter. Then, it was the right choice not to ask him. Lin Ruashi suddenly felt that standing downstairs was very funny. She rushed home a day earlier, but it was also very boring. Nothing is more sorrowful than a dead heart. So this is how it feels. Or could it be that there is nothing to be sorrowful about? After a short burst of unbearable heartache, Lin Ruashi, who didn't faint, thought numbly. Guo Xuehua, who had been nervous, turned her head away. She didn't have the face to face her daughter-in-law. After all, she was the one who left Anshin behind. And she was the one who left Anshin in Yang Cheng's room. This kid, why didn't he know how to pick the time? Was it so unbearable? Mother Wang's face was also very ugly. When she saw Lin Ruashi's expression, she felt a stabbing pain in her heart. She wished that she could help Lin Ruashi bear all the negative emotions. This was the first time Wang Ma hated Yang Chen's fickleness so much. This young master, who she had always thought was a good person, caused her to feel strong disgust for the first time. After a long time, the noise from upstairs didn't stop. Guo Xuehua felt that the situation would be irreversible if this went on. She took a deep breath and said with difficulty, Ruashi, I think, Mom. Lin Ruashi cut Guo Xuehua off expressionlessly. She said calmly, I suddenly remembered that I have something urgent to attend to at the company. I'm going to the company now. I won't be eating breakfast. After she finished speaking, Lin Ruashi took her handbag back from Wang Ma's hands and turned around to walk to the garage without any hesitation. Guo Xuehua didn't have the strength to continue her words. In fact, she knew that it was useless to say anything. Lin Ruashi acted as if nothing had happened. She quietly got out of the red Bentley and waved goodbye to Guo Xuehua and Mother Wang before leaving the courtyard. Guo Xuehua looked up at the clear sky after the rain, but her heart was shrouded by dark clouds. She couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Beijing was located near a small hill in the old city. There was a quaint courtyard that covered a large area. It seemed to be an old house that was more than 100 years old. But because of the daily maintenance, the elegant aura of the richly ornamented building didn't diminish at all. In the study room, in the middle of the courtyard, there were rows of dazzling bookshelves. The light illuminated a small area. An elderly man with dyed black hair, wearing an old military coat, was sitting in front of a desk, holding a photo in his hand, staring at it in a daze. The light shone on the old man's gaunt face, illuminating the old photo. In the photo, the relatively younger old man was holding a kindergartner in his arms. A young woman was smiling happily next to him. The boy was hugging the old man's neck and giggling. Knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door of the study room. Come in, said the old man. He quietly put the photo into a drawer of the study table. The expression on his face was a little indescribable. A middle-aged man in a white shirt and trousers walked into the study room with a grim expression. He said to the old man respectfully, Father, I've spoken to my sister and brother-in-law. How is your sister? Asked the old man. The middle-aged man clenched his fist and said, She fainted from the pain of losing her son. When she woke up, she was crying and begging to see you. I told brother-in-law to calm him down. Things aren't as simple as they seem. Whether it's investigating or taking revenge, they shouldn't interfere. Otherwise, it'll be more dangerous. The old man nodded. Yinpeng, what do you think of this matter? Father, I don't know. On the surface, the killer should be the Yang family's Yang Cheng. But if you think about it carefully, it's not very rational for him to do so. Moreover, the Yang family wouldn't let Yang Cheng do such a thing. But there's no evidence to prove that it was done by someone else. The old man narrowed his eyes and sighed. Yang Gongming is an upright person. I Li Mo's hen, have worked with him for more than 10 years. I've never seen him do anything that he doesn't dare to admit. Regardless of whether his grandson killed my grandson or not, as long as the Yang family doesn't admit it, I believe that it wasn't done by that kid from the Yang family. Li Yunping's face was solemn. If it really wasn't done by the Yang family, then who wanted to make Lu Min their mortal enemy? Could it be that they have a grudge against our Li family? Or do they want to frame the Yang family so that we'll misunderstand? Li Mo's hen snorted, his pair of old eyes filled with sharpness. No matter what the reason is, it's the ambition of a wolf. There aren't many families in Beijing that have the ability to know Yang Cheng's real background and identity. Among the 4 major families, other than our Li family, who specialize in domestic and foreign intelligence, only the Yang family has a relatively clear understanding due to their special background. Even the Ning family, which is like the sun in the sky, only knows a little about it. The Tang family has only been doing business these years, so they don't know anything. Someone wants our Li family to go against the Yang family. They probably know that our Li family has the ability to do something. Li Yunpeng thought carefully and guessed, could it be the Kai family? Kai Yunqing is now the general of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade, so he knows everything he needs to know. But that can't be right. Kai Yunqing seems to have a good relationship with that Yang Cheng, so there's no motive. Besides, the most important thing for the general of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade is to keep a low profile. Isn't he afraid of being secretly taken away by Hongming's envoy like the previous Lin Jigua? Hearing the name Lin Jigua, Li Mashin's eyes twitched, and he said, Kai Yunqing is unlikely, but Hongming, who can take away the general of the Yellow Flame Iron Brigade, is very likely to be someone's target. Other than the 2 of us in the Li family, there are only a handful of people in Beijing who know about this secret, who is so resourceful that they know about the existence of Hongming in our Huaxia, and they clearly know that Hongming will definitely have a restraining effect on Yang Cheng. Li Yunpeng frowned, but he couldn't figure out who did it, so he just stood there in silence. Under the light, Li Mo's hen closed his eyes and thought for a while, and said, Where is Li Dun these days? Hearing the question about his son, Li Yunpeng quickly said, That kid is on a mission in Vietnam. After killing a few fugitives, he should be back in Beijing in a few days. I'll tell him about his cousin's death when he comes back, so that he won't feel guilty, Li Mo's hen said, and then said, Prepare the car. I'm going to the Yang family. Yang family? Li Yunpeng was stunned. He didn't understand what his father meant. Li Mo's hen said, Go if you want. I'll have a cup of tea with your Uncle Yang. Don't delay. Only then did Li Yunpeng quickly turn around and left, but he still felt strange. His grandson might have been killed by the Yang family. Why was his father still in the mood to have tea with the Yang family? There was a commotion in Beijing, but in Zhonghai, Yang Cheng didn't feel anything at all. He was too lazy to think about who killed Lu Min. After half an hour in his room with Anshin, he remembered that there were people waiting for him downstairs for breakfast, so he put it away. After getting dressed, he went downstairs with Anshin and went to the dining table in the living room. Only then did Yang Cheng realize that Guo Shihuahua and Mother Wang were sitting on the sofa, and they didn't look too good. Yang Cheng was puzzled. Everything was fine just a moment ago. Why did it look like a burglar broke in all of a sudden? He came downstairs with Anshin, but there was no response. Mom, what's wrong? Yang Cheng walked up and asked, and Anshin was also puzzled. Guo Shihuahua turned around expressionlessly and said softly, Roashi came back just now. Roashi? Isn't she still in Europe? Yang Cheng thought about it carefully, and he seemed to have heard the sound of a car leaving the house. But he was having fun just now, so he didn't pay much attention to it. Anshin suddenly thought of something, and her pretty face turned pale. Thousands of thoughts flashed through her bright eyes, and she pinched the corner of her shirt, feeling uneasy. She said that the matter in Europe ended early, so she changed her flight to Zhonghai. Initially, she wanted to go back to work after breakfast, but she left quickly after she got home, Guo Shihuahua said lightly. Yang Cheng looked at Guo Shihuahua and Mother Wang's expressions, and it was the first time that they looked so repressed in front of him, as if they were trying hard not to explode. Even if he couldn't figure it out, he finally understood what happened just now. Yang Chung touched his face in annoyance, and he wanted to bang his head on the wall. Previously, when he was in Paris, he told Lin Ruoshi that he would return to Zhonghai to help Anshin deal with some trouble. But now, when Lin Ruoshi returned to Zhonghai, she realized that he and Anshin did it in her house early in the morning. This kind of thing, Yang Chung felt that if he didn't know what happened, he wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Moreover, no matter the reason why he let Anshin sleep in his room, he did do that kind of hurtful thing in this house, so it wasn't a complete misunderstanding. To Lin Ruoshi, it was indeed a little too cruel. Initially, he was a little annoyed by Lin Ruoshi's cold attitude, but now it was all gone, and all of it turned into a sense of guilt. He was having a headache on how to explain it, or in other words, was it useless to explain? At this time, Anshin, who was behind them, said in a low voice, "I'm going home. Annie, Mother Wong, I'm sorry." After understanding everything, Anshin didn't know what to say, and she wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Especially when she saw Guo Xiuehua's cold face, she didn't have the face to stay here. Guo Xiuehua and Mother Wong didn't ask her to stay. To be honest, they were already very tolerant of her if they didn't say anything bad. You can ask your family to pick you up or take a taxi. Be careful." Yang Chung wanted to say that he would send Anshin out, but he felt that the situation wasn't good, and he couldn't let Guo Xiuehua and Mother Wong be agitated. So he asked Anshin to go back by herself. Anshin nodded anxiously and immediately ran out of the door, not daring to stay for a second longer. After Anshin left, Yang Chung stood on the spot for a while and then returned to the dining table. He didn't say anything, just sat down and started to eat the porridge in big mouthfuls. Mother Wong finally couldn't take it anymore. Looking at Yang Cheng's calm face, she frowned and said, "Young master, aren't you anxious at all?" Yang Chung swallowed the food in his mouth, sighed, and smiled bitterly. "Anxious, but it's useless. I'll go to the company after eating and tell Ruoshi everything. Otherwise, I don't know what to do." Guo Xiuehua shook her head and sighed. "What else can I say at this point? There's nothing more to explain. At least I can be honest." Yang Chung laughed at himself. Although he told Lin Ruoshi a long time ago that he wouldn't give up on other women, their vague feelings continued like this. He didn't know when Lin Ruoshi would completely accept him like this, but Yang Chung knew that he had no other way to reconcile this contradiction except to be honest with Lin Ruoshi without reservation. Even if Lin Ruoshi didn't see it today, sooner or later, Lin Ruoshi would see him having a relationship with other women. The principles in his bones made Yang Chung unable to tolerate his woman becoming an underground lover. This was unfair to those women who loved him deeply. Therefore, the final outcome between the two was decided by Lin Ruoshi, and he only wanted to have a clear conscience. Like a reincarnated hungry ghost, he ate almost all the breakfast on the table and didn't seem to have any psychological burden at all. After eating, he wiped his mouth with his hand, and Yang Chung stood up, waved at Guo Xiuehua, and strode out of the house. Chapter 566. In the backyard of the Yang family's military compound in Beijing. As usual, Yang Gongming was dressed in a plain gray robe. He was holding a pair of scissors as he trimmed the excess branches on a few boxwood trees. However, his vision was a little blurry, and it was a little strenuous for him to do so. Li Mo's hen, who had taken off his coat and was wearing a low-collared sweater, was patiently watching his old friend fiddle with the tree. He held a teacup in his hand and didn't seem to be in a hurry to speak. Yin Sanyang was the only old woman standing in the corridor of the courtyard. She squinted her eyes and looked at the two old men in the courtyard with a smile. No one knew what she was smiling about. About 10 minutes later, Yang Gongming finally felt that the trimmed boxwood trees were round and smooth. He walked back to the table, put down the scissors, and sat opposite Li Mo's hen. He picked up the teacup and took a sip of the warm tea. Yang Gongming let out a long sigh. He seemed to be a little tired, but his face was glowing. He looked at the boxwood trees in enjoyment and said, "These trees have to be trimmed from time to time. Don't be fooled by their appearance. If you really take the scissors and trim them, you'll realize that there are actually a lot of places that need to be trimmed. It's just that it's not obvious." Yang Gongming seemed to be muttering to himself. Li Mo's hen followed up, "I'm not as leisurely and elegant as you. I have a lot of things to do, so I leave the flowers and plants at home to the servants. However, I really can't be lazy when it comes to trimming these plants. But I'm not as patient as you. If something doesn't seem right, I'll just shovel it. Sai, you can't. Yang Gongming waved his hand and said, "It's not easy for a tree to be trimmed. Even if you cut the branches, there's still the trunk. Even if you cut the trunk, there's still the roots. The roots might even be connected to other trees, and there might even be many saplings. It takes 10 years to grow a tree and 100 years to nurture a person. Who can say that plants are heartless? If they can be trimmed well, it'll just take some effort." Limo's hen took a sip of tea and chuckled for a while before saying, "Eunuch Yang's tea is still very fragrant. Haha, Oldly, if you like it, you can bring some back. These tea leaves aren't famous, but they were picked and roasted from a few tea trees in our Yang family's old mansion. I can't stand a good life. I'm used to plain tea and plain food. If you really want me to drink some good tea that costs a few thousand yuan per caddy, I would think that the sweet taste is too greasy." Yang Gongming shook his head. Limo's hen laughed heartily. "A simple meal is good. But getting on in years, if there's too much money, not to mention how long we'll be able to enjoy it, I'm afraid our old bones won't be able to support it. Sooner or later, we'll get the disease of being rich. In my opinion, why don't you give me some tea leaves? I'll return the favor and ask Yunpeng to give me some pickled vegetables that my wife pickled herself. What do you think? You old brat. I'll take it as you've gotten lucky. But let's make this clear. Don't randomly buy pickled vegetables from outside and try to fool me. You have to be able to fool me before I dare to fool you." Limo's hen said with an honest face. Just like that, they chatted about the garden and their daily lives. The two old men were like old friends who hadn't seen each other for a long time. If these words were to be heard by others, they would definitely think that the two of them had dementia. As for Lu Min's murder and Yang Cheng's pursuit, the two of them didn't mention a single word. Zhonghaiyu lay International Headquarters building. Early in the morning, there was an endless stream of people coming and going. Following the successful operation of Yu Lei International's new material, the profits multiplied several times. The company's shares also escaped from death twice in a row and bounced back. Yulei International's reputation was becoming more and more prominent. In particular, in the stock market war that shocked the world, Yulei International suddenly threw out $50 billion in cash at the last moment and turned the tide of the battle. This made the outside world completely change their view of this multinational enterprise that was originally thought to be immature and unstable. Nowadays, there was an endless stream of newcomers who wanted to work in Yulei. Many executives from other fashion companies also wanted to jump ship. Such a situation also made the ordinary employees of Yulei envious of the outside world. They felt valiant and high-spirited, walking on the street as if they had been injected with stimulants. Naturally, as the highest leader, Lin Ruoshi had become the spiritual leader in the eyes of the lower-level employees, an idol that they worshipped. The number of Lin Ruoshi's washing powder army was increasing day by day. She even had the momentum to become a popular idol of the younger generation of Huaxia. Many of the planners in Yulei Entertainment were even fantasizing that if they could make Lin Ruoshi an artist, it would be very profitable. Of course, the planners dared to think of such ideas, but they didn't dare to show it at all. Daring to have ideas on their immediate superior? Did they want to quit, or did they want to die? As the director of Yulei Entertainment, Yang Chun was naturally aware of these situations. However, he didn't feel much about the company's current momentum of prosperity. The company was making so much money, but he didn't see his wife becoming much happier. On the contrary, their relationship always had a sense of crisis, as if it was about to fall apart. After driving all the way from home to the headquarters of Yulei, Yang Cheng took the elevator directly to the top floor of the CEO's office. As soon as he got out of the elevator, he saw the CEO's assistant, Wu Yu, wearing a black suit and black-rimmed glasses, standing in the corridor, as if waiting for someone. Because Yang Cheng had previously exposed a relationship with Li Mingyi, Wu Yu was angry at Yang Cheng, but she didn't dare to say anything. She always thought that her relationship with Li Mingyi was not discovered by anyone, but she didn't know that Lin Ruoshi had long seen through it. But she didn't expose it because she cared about her face. Seeing Yang Chung appear, Wu Yu's cold face showed a trace of disgust, and she said stiffly, "General Lin is waiting for you. Go in." Yang Chung thought that Wu Yu was going to stop him from seeing Lin Ruashi again, but he didn't expect that Wu Yu was actually waiting for him to go in. "Ruashi want me to go in?" Yang Chung hesitated and asked to confirm. Wu Yu was annoyed. "Is there someone else called Yang Chung?" "General Lin said that this morning he won't see anyone except you, so he asked me to wait here." Yang Chung was even more puzzled. What did Sister Lin mean by this? Wasn't she angry at him? Why did she suddenly wait for him to come? However, he had already seen Lin Ruashi's meticulous and complicated thoughts, which were completely different from her appearance. So Yang Chung wasn't surprised that Lin Ruashi could guess that he would come. But it was true that everything seemed strange and unpredictable. Yang Chung pondered, slowly walked to the door of the CEO's office, and knocked on the door. "Come in." Lin Ruashi's voice was as moving and crisp as ever, without the slightest trace of anger, calm, and no emotion could be heard. This kind of calmness made Yang Chung even more puzzled. Everything was different from what he had expected, but having come this far, he couldn't go back and figure it out before going in. Yang Chung braced himself, pushed the door open, and walked into the spacious office. The office was still the same as the first time he came in, clean and tidy, transparent and elegant. Other than a few indoor potted plants, everything was the same as before. Lin Ruashi, who was wearing a beige British trench dress, didn't change her attire for returning to the company. At this time, she was standing behind the desk, both hands on the table, looking down at a large drawing. After Yang Chung closed the door, he took a few steps forward, only to find that Lin Ruashi wasn't looking at a fashion design, but a construction drawing. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Yang Chung pretended to cough twice, looked at Lin Ruashi, and said, "Wife, I heard from Wu Yu that you were waiting for me." Lin Ruashi didn't answer directly, but pointed to the large drawing on the table and casually asked, "What do you think of the design of these villas and buildings?" Puzzled, Yang Chung walked forward and carefully looked at the architectural drawing. In fact, there were no less than 3 drawings on the table, and they were either villas or large-scale buildings with several floors. The design of these villas combined the symmetry of the east with the west columns, spires, and other elements. It was quite unique and should not have been made by ordinary designers. The design of the buildings looked like large-scale hotels and guest houses, and the design was very avant-garde. But if the actual construction was to be carried out, it would be a fantasy if there wasn't an initial investment of a few billion. "It's good, but why are you looking at these?" Yang Chung was anxious. Why would he look at the drawings at this time? He had been trying his best to organize all the words to explain the facts. Regardless of whether it was useful or not, he was hoping that it would help him win some points. However, Lin Ruashi wanted to get to the bottom of it. "Good? This is very general. Tell me specifically what's good." Yang Cheng's mouth twitched. Was he here to do a work report? Wasn't he here to explain his family's problems? How can I say that? I only know that building such a villa will definitely cost a lot of money. The more money you spend, the better the things will be. Yang Chung said with waning interest. Lin Ruashi raised her head. She didn't put on any makeup, and a hint of helplessness appeared on her tired face. "How can that be? According to what you said, there's no need to spend a lot of money to buy the design. We can just save the money and build something more expensive." Yang Chung was depressed. Was this woman really going to argue with him about building a house? He couldn't be bothered to drag it on any longer. If this went on, he would soon forget his main purpose of coming here. Thus, he directly said, "Ruashi, I know you must be in a bad mood right now. Don't beat around the bush with me. I came here to explain everything clearly. Regardless of whether you believe me or not, what I want to say is that what you saw and heard this morning wasn't what you thought it was. I did make some mistakes, but I actually only got home this morning. Before Yang Chung could continue, Lin Ruashi raised her hand and signaled for Yang Chung to stop. She shook her head slightly and sighed faintly. She said softly, "You don't have to explain to me. I know you didn't rush back to Zhonghai for such a small matter. You wouldn't lie to me for such a thing." Yang Chung was stunned. This girl was quite open-minded. But the problem was, if she was open-minded, why did she leave home and immediately come to the company? Ignoring Yang Cheng's blank expression, Lin Ruoshi walked lightly to the floor-to-ceiling window at the back of the office. She looked at the rows of buildings outside the building and the roads that had been reduced to the width of a fingertip. After a moment of silence, she said leisurely, "Originally, I wanted to let it go. In fact, there was nothing much to say. But now it seems that even if I don't want to listen, you still want to say it. So, listen to me first." At this time, Lin Ruoshi's back looked a little thin. Her words revealed a bit of desolation, but more than that, it was the calm after the tide subsided. "Yang Cheng, do you still remember what you did when Yang Lai first came to our house? Because Yang Lai provoked you, you beat Yang Lai up badly. Later, that Taoist priest came and pleaded with Sister Kai Ning. In the end, Yuan Yi stood out and recognized Yang Lai as his cousin. In the end, you didn't kill Yang Lai. At that time, because I confirmed Hui Lin's identity as a member of the Lin family, I was a little depressed and didn't think much about it. But after that, I thought Yang Lai and that Taoist priest are both extraordinary people, but in front of you, they are not even on the same level. Then how powerful are you? It can be said that that was the first time you gave me the most positive stimulation. It made me feel that there was actually a huge gap between us. And actually on that day, when Yuan Yi recognized Yang Lai as his cousin, and you suddenly let Yang Lai go, I could roughly guess your parents' identity. But I felt that you didn't want to accept it, so I pretended that I didn't know anything." Listening to Lin Ruoshi's narration, Yang Cheng gradually opened his eyes wide. This woman indeed looked like she didn't care about anything, but in her heart there was not a little. Later, because I played some tricks and destroyed Changlin Media and the Su family's business, I suffered the revenge of Zhang Xinlin and Su Jihong. I know that you must think that it's stupid for a girl like me to be so ruthless in doing business, to fight to the death, and to bring disaster upon myself. Actually, at that time, although I didn't accept Lin Jigua as my grandfather, I knew that if something really happened to me, Lin Jigua definitely wouldn't leave me alone. I didn't know what abilities Lin Jigua had, but since he could protect my grandma, he could definitely protect me. So, I used Lin Jigua to destroy the Zheng family and the Su family at all costs. But in the end, I realized that Lin Jigua didn't do anything to save me, and instead, it was you who helped me to block that disaster. At that time, I realized that you should be related to the forces controlled by Lin Jigua, or maybe Lin Jigua asked you to take care of me. But to me, it actually didn't matter. I just needed someone to help me block those people's counterattack. Speaking up to this point, Lin Ruoshi turned around and smiled bitterly at the dumbfounded Yang Cheng. "Yang Cheng, do you still remember that time, after you killed Zhang Xinlin and Su Jihong? I told you not to take it to heart. I remember," Yang Cheng said woodenly, "you said that you and I are both poisonous scorpions. We can only kill ourselves." "Yeah." Lin Ruoshi's shoulders lightly shook, as if she couldn't hold back her laughter. "Yang Cheng, you're so silly, so silly. I only told a story to trick a kid, and you really believed it." "Yang Cheng, for a woman like me who has never seen a dead person since young, when I saw a man smashing a person's head into pieces with his bare hands, do you think I could accept it so easily?" Chapter 567. Listening to Lin Ruoshi's sudden straightforward words, Yang Cheng's face turned ashen. He clenched his fists so tightly that his bones cracked. Lin Ruoshi didn't look at Yang Cheng's expression. She turned her head and said coldly, "I lied to you. When you killed so many people, I was scared to death. At that time, I couldn't wait for you to disappear from my side. Do you know how terrifying you were? You were like a murderous demon. Your whole body was covered in blood. I felt like my neck could be broken by you at any time." Lin Ruoshi's voice trembled a little. She took a deep breath. "But I couldn't let you go. If you weren't by my side, then who could protect me? If there were other people who wanted to harm me, and I happened to have no one by my side, then wouldn't I die unjustly? I still have such a big company to manage. I still have so many unfinished business." Lin Ruoshi said, "So I thought of a poisonous scorpion story and told it to you. I told you that you and I are both poisonous scorpions. In this way, You wouldn't think that I would be affected by you, and I wouldn't be afraid of you. In this way, you could stay by my side and protect me again. Although I was very afraid, at least with you around, I didn't have to be afraid of more people. But later, you did something very stupid. You actually said that you wanted to end our marriage contract early and divorce me. I was very disappointed at that time. If we ended our marriage early, then I would have to return to being single again. In this way, so many men would fly over like bedbugs. Moreover, if you weren't by my side, if Lin Jiguo wanted to force me to do something, I might not be able to refuse. You are still very important to me. How can I let you go so easily, especially when you still have so many mysteries that have yet to be solved? Enough. Lin Ruoshi, don't say any more. Yang Cheng felt all the blood in his body rushing. The woman's words were like a knife stabbing into his heart, making it hard for him to breathe. Lin Ruoshi had no intention of stopping. For the first time, she giggled and continued. Why don't you say it? I'm going to say it today. What? You can't accept it. Can't accept that I'm such a malicious woman? You actually knew it a long time ago, didn't you? When I planned to defeat and annex Shanglin Media and Donghua Technology, I sent you and Chinny to Hong Kong in order to make the show flawless. Weren't you still in the car that day because I put Chinny in danger and you felt uncomfortable? Actually, you should wake up. I am a woman who will do anything to achieve my goals. Oh yes, one more time. That time when I went to inspect the basic factory, I really miscalculated. I didn't expect them to be so daring, but it was also because you were by my side that I dared to keep the appointment to have dinner with them. In the end, I met a group of idiots who wanted to harm me, and it was also because of you that they failed. When I was in the car back to Zhonghai, you comforted me, saying that I could help more ordinary families by doing this, and it was actually a great good deed. Lin Ruoshi lowered her head and smiled with some difficulty. She shook her head and sighed. I'm not afraid to tell you now. In fact, what the factory director said was right. I did ask the government and the bank to put pressure on their family. The reason why they were acquired by me was because of me. It's just that you were there at the time, and I lied to you, saying that it had nothing to do with me. In fact, I was simply playing tricks. Do you remember? I said a long time ago that I'm a businessman. As long as I don't break the law, don't get arrested, and can make a profit, I will do it. Even if I know that I am very vicious and very ruthless, I will still do it. Compared to that, lying to you is much easier for me. Yang Cheng's face was as dark as water. He suddenly felt that the woman in front of him was so unfamiliar. Lin Ruoshi wasn't finished yet. That day, after finishing the factory business, when we returned to Zhonghai for dinner, you suddenly began to tell me a lot of your shortcomings, making a mess of yourself. At that time, I'd already guessed that you must be using this to express your attitude to me, but I didn't know what you were trying to express. I was very nervous at that time, and what I was most afraid of was that you would suddenly leave me. If that happened, I had already gotten used to having you help me solve those problems. If you really wanted to divorce me, it would be very troublesome for me. But fortunately, I shed a few drops of tears, and in exchange, you said in front of everyone on the street that you liked me. Hee. Do you know how stupid you were? If you said that you wanted to break up with me and divorce me, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you. I know that your identity is definitely not ordinary, and you are definitely not that mutton skewer vendor that I met at the beginning, so I can't do anything to you. But you just have to say that you like me, a woman who has always been using you and lying to you. Shut up. Yang Cheng shouted in a low voice to stop Lin Ruoshi's words. The expression on his face was terrifyingly dark. Lin Ruoshi, do you know what you're saying? Lin Ruoshi slowly turned around and fearlessly looked at Yang Cheng's somewhat sinister face. Of course I know what I'm saying. These are all facts. Since we've already come this far, there's no need for me to hide anything from you anymore. Anyway, we're going to separate sooner or later, and I'll let a stupid man like you know how I've used you, so that you can completely give up. Stupid humph. Yang Cheng sneered, walked forward, and stood straight in front of Lin Ruoshi. Their eyes met, but Lin Ruoshi had no intention of dodging, and there was not the slightest hint of fear on her cold and peerlessly beautiful face. Slap. A resounding slap. Yang Cheng directly slapped Lin Ruoshi's left cheek. Lin Ruoshi felt dizzy and subconsciously reached out to cover her left cheek. The burning pain there made her realize that she had really been slapped by Yang Chung. "You hit me." Lin Ruoshi was dumbfounded. Yang Chung sneered and said, "This is a lie to me. You've hidden so much from me, and you're such a vicious woman with a venomous heart. Of course I have to hit you." Lin Ruoshi's pair of moist eyes became misty, and she smiled bitterly. "Yes, you should hit me. You hit me really well." Slap. Another slap suddenly landed on Lin Ruoshi's right cheek. Lin Ruoshi's body was directly pushed to the side of the table by the force of the slap, and she barely supported her body, not falling down. With one hand covering the red mark on her right cheek, Lin Ruoshi suddenly raised her head and asked coldly, "How many slaps are you going to give me? Why don't you do it all at once, or beat me to death?" Yang Chung leaned forward and directly pounced on Lin Ruoshi, his hands imprisoning Lin Ruoshi's delicate body under him. The two of them faced each other very close, and from a distance, their posture even looked a little ambiguous. "Speak." Yang Chung expressionlessly stared at the woman leaning on the table below him and said, "Say what?" Lin Ruoshi coldly asked. "Say that you like me." Yang Chung said. "On what basis?" Lin Ruoshi's eyes sparkled. "Because Laozi said that Laozi likes you." Yang Chung said resolutely. Lin Ruoshi was stunned for a while, then shook her head. "I don't like you." "Huh." Another slap landed on Lin Ruoshi's left cheek. Say that you like me." Yang Chung mechanically continued to ask. Lin Ruoshi was like a hysterical female leopard that wanted to resist, but she couldn't move the lion on top of her. She could only grit her teeth and pretend that she didn't hear anything. "Huh." Another slap to the face. Lin Ruoshi was stunned. What was this man going to do to her? "Say that you like me. If you don't say it out loud, I'll keep hitting you." Yang Chung seemed to be possessed as he stared at the woman and said. Lin Ruoshi finally couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes. 2 streams of tears rolled down her cheeks. She couldn't control it at all. She was like a helpless little girl who was being bullied, but no one would help her, because the person who had always helped her was the person who was hitting her. You bastard. Even if you beat me to death, I wouldn't say that." Lin Ruoshi bit her lower lip and sobbed. Yang Ching's expression changed several times. In the end, he moved his body away from Lin Ruoshi. Lin Ruoshi thought that he was going to let her go, but she suddenly saw Yang Chung pick up a platinum pen from his desk. Realizing that something was wrong, Lin Ruoshi ignored the burning pain on her face and asked, "What are you going to do?" Yang Chung indifferently glanced at the woman and laughed self-deprecatingly. "Since you won't like me even if I beat you to death, then I can't slap you for nothing. Of course I have to pay something for myself." With that, Yang Chung held the pen in his right hand and suddenly stabbed it into his chest. Poochie! The pen instantly pierced into his chest. Lin Ruoshi's originally sorrowful face instantly froze. Her tears could no longer fall, and her pair of watery eyes were filled with grief. "Are you crazy?" Lin Ruoshi cried out in alarm. She pounced forward and grabbed Yang Cheng's arm. Seeing the blood flowing down from the pen on Yang Cheng's chest, Lin Ruoshi felt like the world was spinning and she was on the verge of collapse. Why did you do such a stupid thing?" At this moment, Lin Ruoshi did not have any manners to speak of. Her face was red and swollen, and her eyes were misty with tears as she sobbed. Yang Chung looked extremely tired, as if his chest had been severely injured. He was very weak. "I like you, but I hit you. If I don't stab my own heart, how can I be at ease?" "Who said I don't like you?" Lin Ruoshi suddenly shouted. "Bastard! Idiot! Idiot! Yang Chung, you scoundrel! I like you! I like you! I like you! I like you! Why are you so stupid?" Yang Chung panted with difficulty and smiled bitterly. "Are you trying to comfort me, because I'm about to die?" Lin Ruoshi shook her head desperately. Her sobs made it difficult for her to finish her words. She said intermittently, "It's me. It's my fault. I just wanted to make you angry. My heart hurts. My heart is about to break. I really like you. Yang Chung, don't let anything happen to you. You. Why are you bleeding so much? Why do you like me? Am I not stupid? Always cheated by you. Also fickle, not serious. Yang Cheng's lips were pale as he struggled to ask. I like you, I just like you. I really don't know why I like you. Lin Ruoshi was about to go crazy. This man was already like this. Why was he still struggling with such a question? Suddenly, Yang Cheng laughed mischievously. His face was wretched, as if he had picked up $1 million in cash on the street. Seeing that Yang Cheng was suddenly fine, Lin Ruoshi finally realized. She seemed to have been cheated. TSK, you don't know why you like me. Liking me without knowing the reason is true love. My good wife, you really like your husband. Ha ha ha, I didn't stab myself in vain. Ha, you cheated. You lied to me again. Lin Ruoshi was happy and angry at the same time. She suddenly realized that Yang Cheng was not an ordinary person. How could he die so easily? She was startled by his actions and immediately forgot about everything except for worry. Now she didn't know what to do. 2 red clouds appeared on her face. What kind of mushy words did she say? How could Yang Cheng care so much? He directly pulled out the pen from his chest. Although it was stained with blood, it was only some muscle tissue blood. Even if Yang Cheng didn't take the initiative to circulate his energy, the strong quality of his body would immediately heal the wound. He smiled and hugged Lin Ruoshi's soft body in his arms. He kissed her red lips a few times, and his saliva stained his face. Lin Ruoshi was on the verge of fainting. This man's emotions were fluctuating wildly. At this moment, he was still hugging and playing with her like a doll. His mouth was even nibbling on her face. Be good, babe Ruoshi. What you said just now almost broke my heart. We're even now. I've angered you, and you've hurt me. Previously, you lied to me and used me. We'll write it off. Just take it that I, your husband, was willing to be used by you as a gun. However, with our little Ruoshi's character of being in her 20s and still thinking about glutinous rice balls, watching Korean dramas, and collecting Hello Kitties, your words actually don't have the slightest bit of credibility. Yang Chun said as he winked in distress. Lin Ruoshi pouted. She thought that he didn't believe what she said just now. He was waiting for her to jump into a trap. Yang Cheng looked at the woman's angry and dissatisfied look and felt that it was quite cute. His 2 hands caressed Lin Ruoshi's face. Lin Ruoshi subconsciously felt that Yang Cheng was going to hit her again, and she shrank back in fear. The iceberg female CEO, who is usually avoided by others, was like a frightened kitten at this moment. The woman had removed the layer of iceberg shell, and inside, she was so delicate. Yang Cheng felt a burst of pity. He smiled bitterly and said, Silly girl, I hit you to make you sober up. Don't say those lies. I'm using my martial arts to help you get rid of the swelling on your face. Otherwise, how are you going to walk out of the door? Lin Ruoshi lowered her head and let Yang Cheng put his hand on her cheek. She felt a warmth. After a short while, the redness on her cheek disappeared, and she once again returned to her snow-white skin. Feeling Yang Cheng's magical ability at such a close distance, Lin Ruoshi, in addition to the amazement in her heart, felt an inexplicable complex emotion. Looking at Yang Cheng's ordinary face, she was slightly lost in thought. Yang Cheng was carefully looking to see if there was any place that had not been unblocked, but he saw Lin Ruoshi's black eyes staring at him. He couldn't help but be shocked and said with a smile, Wife, look at your expectant eyes. Could it be that you want to push your relationship with your husband to the next step?